Hey everybody, welcome to Squatch Talk. I'm Pat, and we're here for interesting night. We got Thomas Steenberg, we've got Steve from Curious Cryptid, and Ernie. Hopefully, will join us in a minute. I'm going to try and bring him in, see what happens. And we're just we're talking some Bigfoot tonight. A little bit of debate prep, if you will, because. I will be on another YouTube channel, which is linked in the description down below, tomorrow at noon for Bigfoot debate, and should be interesting discussion. So we're just gonna talk some Squatch here tonight, and these guys are gonna help me prep for that a little bit and get some more information.
Is that noon Atlantic time, sir, tomorrow, or which time zone?
Noon Eastern. Noon Eastern. Yeah.
So that'd be about like 9 in the morning here in the West Coast.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and bring Ernie in. He's man, he lives out in the woods. He has like variable signals. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Right now it's not looking so good.
Can't get that portal open.
Yeah, he can. Good one.
He's not one of those, is he?
No, he's not. Not at all. Not at all.
Can you hear me?
All right.
We can hear you.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you moving. That's even better.
And he's a fellow pipe smoker. I like that.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can't hear.
Oh, we just lost him again. He's frozen.
I'm not sure he can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be. But hopefully we will get him back. So
what sort of questions are you going to be facing from your debating opposite?
This is in honor of Thomas Steenberg tonight.
Thank you, Ernie. I salute you right back.
Yes, love it.
Oh, well. I guess you can hear me.
You're breaking up real bad there, Chief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to text him. We can hear you. Well, that was cool. Questions? I don't know. I'm sure there will be a few, several. I'm pretty much ready for them, I think.
Well,
what are you bringing to the table? So there, from the evidence that we have calls in the woods, we have footprints, occasional possible body prints, hands, fists.
Which is all anecdotal. It doesn't prove a thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is what they'll jump on.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think she will be jumping on anything. So, her name's Erica. I don't know her last name. She's a primatologist and an anthropologist, but she actually seems to be very curious about Bigfoot.
And Pat, you should make it perfectly clear that as a researcher, you accept the possibility, even though you may not agree with it at this time, that in the end, they may turn out to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, because we're supposed to be researchers, not religious leaders pushing a faith. Okay? Well,
I agree with that, and I don't have a faith.
Yeah.
I have no faith in this phenomenon. It is nothing but a phenomenon that is unexplained. That's my angle, no matter what. Here in the Bigfoot world and outside the Bigfoot world.
Yeah, but
there's no explanation for it.
Absolutely. But
yeah,
there's just too many people who come involved in this. They're like religious leaders pushing the faith rather than a researcher trying to find an answer. And And that's
I'm
the
not
most
that guy.
yeah, and that's the most damaging thing about it. So you get on good terms like that right off the bat and tell them you're debating them the evidence rather than arguing for one side or the other. That's fine.
Yeah, and actually, one of the best things I've heard you say in this is there is a phenomena. You believe in the phenomena of Bigfoot. There are people who are perceiving these things going on in the woods, and we're looking to try to figure out what it actually is, whether it's a primate or a hominid or a whole collection of other things that are going on that people are misinterpreting.
Correct. The phenomena is real, 100%. There's no arguing that in my book.
So if she asked you, how do you know that? What are you going to say?
How do I know that? Because there's tens of thousands of anecdotal accounts.
Okay, so you have Anna. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
Well, yeah, you missed the first part of what I said there, though, Leon.
Actually, I watched you, Steve. That's why I was late. I just followed up on what you guys were just chatting about. But
okay.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to see you guys, by the way.
Hey, Leon.
Really
Always glad to have Leon of Sasquatch Okanagan on.
Yeah. There's another guy. He's like How to Bigfoot Okanagan out there. I think that's his page. You don't watch him.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Yeah. Because when I was thinking about this whole thing, I remember one of my professors, he was asked to debate the Muslim community from a Christian perspective.
Right.
And both speakers were PhD people. But what he did was, and this is what I was talking to you privately about, Pat, about using academic thinking actually against the academic, because the academic has a certain perspective. What was her name again that's on tonight or tomorrow with you?
Erica.
Yeah, Erica's really nice.
Honestly, she is. Yeah.
Yeah. The other girl I thought that was an embarrassment to Dr. Meldrum when we had to talk to her. She just was like, he really did see or something like that.
I mean, she's nice in her own way, but she was like, she wasn't an appropriate opponent, I would say.
She wasn't seasoned enough for it.
Yeah, but Maddie, Maddie's a good person too, and I've seen her debate a flat earther who was being very rude to her.
Yeah,
and she handled it well. So it just was not the right person to be like talking to Meldrum. I think I would have rather seen Erica talk with Meldrum that whole time.
Yeah,
so that's my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of going back to what I was saying a little bit before too. Was so instead of going into this debate, he didn't go in with the idea of Christianity is true and Muslims aren't true. What he did was he went into the debate. Of course, the Muslim professor was coming back from that angle. I just got in just a few minutes ago, so my brain's not quite here yet. But what he did was he didn't talk about the difference in religions. What he talked about was culture and how it influences all religions. And so if you've come over from another country with a belief system, you got 3 generations till the 3rd generation is not believing what the original generation does. And so we have those family conflicts that end up happening. So now that's a good blueprint when you're talking to somebody like this. And what you have to do is learn a way to deflate their position without them realizing it. And what you do by doing, or how to do that, is you agree with them and you're like this. So that's a good thing. You're not going to be in there, no, Sasquatch is real, blah, 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 blah. Whenever she's using a scientific method or going into Merton's norms or any kind of stuff like that, and you don't have the answer for it, agree with her. Don't have any idea. Have no idea.
I of course I would, because I can't say what Bigfoot is.
Right.
I can't. I'm not coming with that explanation.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have a problem tomorrow with her. The other one, I would have used a total different strategy, because she's a chatter, the one you're with tomorrow, and she is interested. She's curious about things, and she'll ask you interesting things. Well, yeah, it's a debate though. It's not like this. So,
well, hopefully it will be more like this.
Well,
I'm sure she will challenge me. And she should. I should be challenged.
I think the best thing you can do is get them on their position to have an open mind. It's simple as that.
I think she does. That's the thing. Yeah. Is she seems very curious about the phenomena.
Mhm.
She admitted, like on that the Meldrum debate where she was a co-moderator, she admitted that the Patterson Gimlin film was a strange film. She said that.
Yeah.
And that actually like put me back in my chair when I heard that for the first time. I was like, what? I've never heard a scientific, professional scientist ever say anything like that. And she's young, obviously. She's in her 20s, So when Meldrum talks about the old school versus new school, like the newer generation coming in, she kind of represents that as opposed to the hardened, like old school guys. Well, there's no way. There's no way there could be another biped, hominid in this planet.
Oh, right. But the thing with their side is they don't hear the argument about an unclassified higher primate existing in the woods. They hear all the weird stuff because you get into this now, you start looking at Bigfoot's a fourth dimension shapeshifter who comes in when we sit down and fill our hearts with love or something like that, and all the weirdos and stuff.
Or they come to the window and ask for sugar.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff they got to deal with. So naturally, and it's the Sasquatch field itself is the main reason mainstream science has avoided this, like with a 10-foot pole ever since it began, except for a few individuals who became pariahs in their own field, and like the late Grover Krantz, the late Vladimir Mercado, the late John Vindenagel, and of course Meldrum. They all get talked behind their back by their colleagues.
To some degree, I wouldn't say Meldrum's a pariah, and I don't know about the other guys because I don't have a lot of.
No. He's not saying those guys are pariahs. They're being attacked by the pariahs.
Yeah,
what he's saying. That's not what.
Yeah, and I think Meldrum doesn't have too hard of a time in his. I mean, he's tenure at his university.
Well, he's lucky that way. Yeah.
So I mean,
but I'm sure
he's definitely caught some flack with his colleagues, and he'll admit that.
His interest in the Sasquatch almost interfered with him getting tenure.
But he got it.
He got it. Yeah.
Well, it's all in the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key part. You're not trying to defend a faith here, prove that you're the speaker for every Bigfooter that's out there. The craziness that the rest of us talk about.
Yeah.
And, when I was getting interviewed for the Slocan thing and had to think of my toes chronically because I had to keep remembering what kind of show I was on, if it's like a 3-minute blurb on the radio or what.
Right, yeah.
And the key part is to, your whole narrative is kind of bathed in, I don't know. But there seems to be something here. I always lean back to, well, the academics say there's something out here. And they do. But it goes back to what Thomas is talking about too. You're also dealing with something now that's been rooted in our culture that has what's the word I'm looking for? A touristy kind of mockery attached to it. And that's why the other scientific community won't do anything with it. And again, the other thing too is we got to stop giving them garbage. We have to learn what we're looking at and what we're actually doing and be scientific research or citizen researchers. But we need the academics to help us understand if we want to be that way. If I want to be that way, what do I need to do? You need to show me what I need to do. What do you need from me? And instead of I'm a citizen researcher, I know what they need from me. No, let's get them what they need. And we have to get, and that means we're all across the platforms have to up the game, which they are slowly. There's definitely a group of us that are now upping our game in regards to let's get serious if we're going to be doing this. We got the amount of people out there doing it. If we educate them, we got the resources, technical resources. Kerry just proved all that kind of stuff. At least for practicum, they did on the last 7-day research thing they went on. We need more practice levels at that, not just, one group did it with 5 other
I'm not sure that group would have survived 14 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, that Thomas, I don't want to get off track if we're supposed to
Yeah.
be talking about the debate thing, but it's up to you, Pat.
Well, that's part of the phenomena. There are so many different factions and so many different individual approaches, and so much of the I'm more right than the other people. It's hard to cut through all of that.
Yeah, and I think an important element in my mind is that a lot of people in the scientific world or outside of the Bigfoot bubble, let's just say, they don't understand that there's an element of people like us, if that makes any sense. So I'm trying to show them that, hey, we're not crazy Bigfooters, you know? Like, hey, man, come down. Like, you come down to my property, I'll show you Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You still
Okay, I'm gonna be in the bubble.
you know?
Yeah. The cone of silence.
So yeah, it's like I think it's important. And that's what I'm going to try and represent the most tomorrow is like, hey, here's somebody who's actually skeptical and a critical thinker, and I swim deep in the Bigfoot waters, so it can be done. Come join us.
Mm-hmm.
We need your help. How about a environmental DNA study? Can we get that going? You know, Bigfooters can't do that. They can't do that. So, I'm just trying to bridge the gap best I can. You guys know that.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I know.
So one of the things you'd probably need to speak to is that it is hard the way Bigfoot evidence is organized or disorganized and all over the place. It's hard to figure out what various real phenomena are actually happening out there, what things people are actually seeing and experiencing, what have to do potentially with something that's actually Bigfoot, and what are things that people are really misinterpreting when they're out there.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know, dude. You're not misinterpreting a Bigfoot standing 20 feet in front of you, right?
No, but a lot of people are misinterpreting every stick snap and everything they hear as Sasquatch.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing. Every weird little formation in the trees created by wind or people, they assume Sasquatch did it, and there's way too much of that.
All right. Well, let me ask you guys this: how many people have had, a Class A encounter, which is like a clear view of a freaking Bigfoot, either standing in front of them, at some distance, where it's clearly recognizable as an 8-foot tall monkey man. How many people have encountered that? 1,000, 10,000? What do you think?
Well, I have 200 files here of either that or very close to it. So far, 2021 has been absolutely dead in this neck of the woods.
Yeah.
We could look at what BFRO has out of their database, but now we know how much we can really trust a lot of what is in there.
Yeah, tell me, Leon, have they reclassified the best track find of 2020 yet?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So much for the BFRO classifications.
Yeah. Again, I mean, that was a Matt Moneymaker thing personally.
Well, if you're dealing with the BFRO, you're going to be dealing with Matt Moneymaker.
Well, Matt Moneymaker's never came to Georgia and taken one report.
Mm.
So that's other people doing that throughout.
Well, I know, but that's what the BFRO it was supposed to be. Members all over. So
that's what it is.
That's what it was supposed to be. Anytime something happened, the closest member would be sent to look into it. Right? That's what it was supposed to be. But so many people who started off with the BFRO got into personal conflicts with Matt himself, and they just said, "Oh, the heck with this," and they left.
And there are so many reports about the reports that they file into the database being amended
Yeah.
and adjusted
Yep.
because people are seeing things out there, and they may not have anything to do with Bigfoot, but they're seeing and reporting what they're seeing, and those things are not getting into the database.
That's right. I mean, they should, if they had any credibility, if there was any credibility, and I'm very disappointed they haven't done it, there should be an addendum on that report saying Leon of Sasquatch Okanagan did a follow-up investigation into this incident and concluded that the most likely cause of these footprints was a moose, and that should be added to it.
And again, he's the president of BFRO. If the president embarrassed a corporation like that, they'd be fired. And it puts inflation on what everyone else does. So
I agree.
He embarrassed all the staff who are out there trying to do the best of what they're supposed to be doing. That's from their angle, that's an embarrassment to them. We're out here doing what we're supposed to be doing. Going back to the original question, I see it a little differently than you guys, but I can't remember exactly how that question was formed when we started the question.
How many people have had a very clear Class A, like, this is an 8-foot tall monkey man? How many people have actually seen that?
Yeah, and I don't know what the number of that would be and whether or not you could rely on that number anyways. What I would be looking for is, in my side of it, is how many people have bumped into something in the bush. Hey, Ernie, welcome back.
Hey, guys.
I would be looking at how many people who have claimed this, it has affected their life quite diversely, or not diversely, like PTSD style wise. There's something in those style of investigations or interviews that you do where you can just tell that they did have some experience with something that was so traumatic for them, it affected them. To say 1,000, yeah, we could just speculate on how many. But again, after this whole report from Slocan, I don't know which ones I can say, yeah, these people definitely ran into stuff. I mean, that's supposed to be vetted for me, so I can say, yeah, these people here saw this, and this is how it actually happened, and we investigated, and that's exactly correct. And so, I mean, that's the problem. It's been for 20 years. And remember, we're in a system, and the system is taking control over the people in the system. And so, and what does that mean? That means that we came online and we started watching like everyone else did, and we started formulating ideas and concepts that we were getting primed from the people online. And we're finding out today that it's a waste of our time. Hooray, let's get moving that direction. I think all of us here, are the ones that are backing you, Pat, in regards to do good, just do Pat tomorrow. Don't try to be the Bigfoot researcher, which you're not. And
I'm not.
No, I know, and that's a healthy researcher. I'm trying to do the Bigfoot research, or I'm trying to do Leon looking for a Sasquatch using a scientific method so I don't fool myself.
Yeah, and really shocked the hell of him tomorrow, Pat, by saying, hey, a healthy dose of skepticism is the best quality a researcher can have.
Yeah, totally. You derail their perceptional.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the person debating, it's the people who will be watching, because they're already going to be filled in with, oh, these guys are crazy people. So you defuse their positions by just saying, well, what do I know? You'll always hear me say, I don't sit down and have a coffee with them every day. What would I know about the Sasquatch? So I actually answer their thinking process before, so that you're slowly winning them over to realize, no, I'm not here saying there is or there isn't. All I'm saying there seems to be. So as a scientist, then you go after the scientists' techniques. Would you be interested in trying to find something out about this? And what would you do? And as a citizen researcher, what would we need to do to help you guys do, to help you get more financial support to look at this thing? And we get it. We're in this. Those people can't argue it. We're in the craziness. We get how crazy it is out here. And you use that to your advantage. You say it like that. You go, look, it's crazy out here. Madness is, I've moved up from crazy to madness now, But the nice thing is, it's not madness across the board. That's the nice thing. We've found a group of us now where we're not in the madness. We want to find out what we need to do. And
matter of fact, the scientific community ever gets involved like we always wanted them to. And that would happen when we get them what science has always demanded, and that's a sufficient amount of body or piece of body lay out on the table before them. And once that ball gets rolling, they're off and running, and we're kind of left at the wayside.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
How quick the Bigfoot world would become irrelevant. I think.
Mhm.
I think.
I think
if
it would
that happened.
fuel a fire under our butts to get out there for sure.
Mhm.
Get something tactile like that. You guys know we have it. We will get even more involved with what we're doing because we're already out here. The problem is we have not had enough direction, and also it gives a bit of a spanking onto some of these other ideologies that are out there. You know.
Yeah, science would just say, "Oh, well, we kind of knew it was there all along, and what was all the fuss about?"
No, that is not documented. I don't. Yeah, that claim could never be honestly said, right?
Because it's going to be a slow, drawn out. Even with a body or a piece of body, they're going to want to look at it, and others are going to want to look at it. Then the ball gets rolling, so merry-go-round slowly starts to turn. Oh, there'll be a study done, and then once that's done, some politician will say, "Gee, do we really need to get involved in that? I guess we better."
Yeah.
Boy, does the Sasquatch need old growth forests to survive? There'll have to be another study done on that.
Yeah, that scares me.
Yeah, and and that's the way the wheel rolls.
Yeah.
Politicians should never be involved.
Yeah, people say we ought to go out and be a Jane Goodall or a Diane Fossey, and I always remind them, hey, Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey weren't trying to prove the existence of gorillas and chimps. That was already established.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
knew they were there. Yeah, they knew they were there, and it was there because someone brought in bodies, and that's just the way it works. And no amount of politically correct wishful thinking is ever going to change it.
Yep.
Well, there's another angle too. Is once they do find the body part, you'll watch the reports go through the roof. Everyone's going to start seeing Sasquatch for a while.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the UFOs.
I find it, Leon, it's that way now. I mean, when I started, you almost had to pry information out of a witness. And now it's, well, there are 10 people saying they saw Sasquatch. I've interviewed 10. I think 2 of them may be telling the truth. The rest are just trying to get their 15 minutes, you know?
Well, with the Slocan tracks, there were at least 2 other things that happened kind of in the area. Could they have even been inspired a bit by having that one thing go off near them?
Yeah, you're talking about the polar dip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that was a marketing thing that was probably already planned. But what about that footprint that got called into you? The book cover footprint?
Oh, yeah, that's a different. Yeah, that's for the Kelowna area here. Yeah, I mean that it's. See, that's the madness. The madness is if we knew what we were talking about, we wouldn't be afraid to do what Pat's doing, going on a live debate tomorrow. Because we know what we're doing and we know ourselves and we know our sincerity and our character. And we want to make sure what we're providing is something on the plate, a piece of carrot. I don't know. Give me something I can get something into my mouth with, but not an empty plate and say, there's a Sasquatch steak right there. I don't see what you're talking about. There's nothing here for me to say this is a Sasquatch whatsoever.
But Pat, tomorrow they're probably going to go and bring up, the best piece of anecdotal evidence we have, which is the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, and they'll try to either bring out things that have been repeated over the years that have been proven to be false, and so on and so forth, and try to trip you up that way, and that's gonna happen. And their biggest argument and their most convincing argument is why the fact that something like that has never happened since. But they'll bring out little facts about that. And we were talking about this earlier. What kind of camera was he using, et cetera, different things. You see, it's a Cine Kodak K100. This right here.
Yeah. What? You have that? You have that camera?
He has the Patterson-Gimlin camera.
No, I mean that same type.
And the lost
same type.
No. I'm just saying that's what.
There's even a mathematical.
Go now. You know how rumors get started.
Since no one ever wrote down the serial number, it's a mathematical possibility this is the camera, though I doubt it. I picked this up in Washington years ago. A buddy of mine picked this up for me. And again, 16 millimeter. A horrible camera. It was discontinued in 1964, but there were still a lot of them around. And Roger had to rent it.
Right.
Which he failed to return, and there was a warrant issued for his arrest. But it's just simple, a little switch here, a little trigger switch. You put that, can you hear it?
Yeah.
It's running, but if you push it up, it runs. But you let go, it stops automatically, and it stopped on Roger at least twice while he was filming the damn thing. So that's why you have overexposed frames. Because twice he took his finger up there, once when he was crossing the creek, and again later on when he was up on top, he stopped filming twice for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're going to point out the tracks. And like I said, you got the two that Patterson cast that day, right here. Left, one right. Roger being Roger, he picked the most clearest ones, right?
Right.
And then Bob Timmons went down there days later and cast 10 of them in a row, and one of them was this one. This is known as the Laverty track, which is that great mid-tarsal break. And they point out how they're all the same. Well, the foot that made this track also made this one about 20 paces later, and you can see the difference. This is rather flat-footed.
Yeah.
This one has a mid-tarsal break. So there is variances in the tracks. They'll probably try to point out and say, oh, the tracks were the same and no variance, no indication of toe movement or anything like that, when there was ample indication in that line of tracks of all those things.
What about the weight of the impression? Was that ever discussed or?
Well, they like
proven?
to say, well, it was deeper than even the men can do. And Bob Gimmons said he tried jumping off a stump to achieve the same depth. They said it was twice as deep as the horse tracks, but that doesn't really say much because the horse's weight is distributed amongst four legs.
Yeah.
Right. This is two legs. And but they were a good deal heavier and deeper into the soil at the film site than the two men. And most of the people who came around afterwards said the same thing. Lyle Laverty the following Monday. Richard Henry a week after that. He's the one that took Jim McLaren down there. And he drew that XMF. Richard Henry just passed away a year or so ago. And his memory of the tracks were excellent. He even saw a whole line of them where it looked like there was dried plaster beside them, and they had been partially ruined. And that's because he was looking at Titmus's castings.
Right.
Yeah. But they'll bring all that up because it always, no matter what they do, it always seems to go back to that film. And I'll send you that information on Ford Motion Picture Lab and Shepherd's Camera Shop later on, so you can have it with you when you go on tomorrow.
Yes, please do.
Now, out of the Patterson-Gimlin film, there are some things that are reasonably challengeable, like body ratio, arm length to leg length, and someone in a costume could have had a hand extender and things like that. There are other things that I think are a little less debatable, like the way she lifted her foot when she was walking a lot higher than humans lift their foot when they're walking.
Almost like a person who cross-country skis.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other interesting thing too is when she does lift her foot, her toes all go straight up, like almost like that.
When they're connecting with the ground, yeah.
Yeah, when she comes up, and then all of a sudden you'll see her toes like curl, like massively curl, and you can see all of them curling too, which is, it's not like they're connected to each other; they're independently.
Which is another excellent feature of a bipedal barefoot creature adapted to mountain country.
Right.
Right.
Well, she so yeah, when she walks, she has a very high shin rise. and it doesn't match the gait of a human at all.
Mhm.
And it's extremely hard to replicate. In fact, I don't care what anybody says, I've never seen a human being replicate that walk and not do and not do a human walk that's kind of mocking the high shin rise.
You've never seen a human be able to do it gracefully.
Yes.
No, I mean they always fully extend their the leg they're pushing off of. They even if they try and mock that shin rise, they end up doing a full extension. And every time it's been tried, where somebody said, "Hey, try," take an actor or whoever and try and replicate that walk. They could in real time. It looks like they're doing it, but when you slow it down, that full extension always happens, and they never can get that same kind of high shin rise. So, like to me, that's conclusive. Not to mention the volume of what we're talking about. We're not talking about.
Not also forget every time people are watching this film on documentaries or television or whatever happens to be on, 9 times out of the 10 they're looking at a slowed down copy of the film.
Yeah.
If you ever looked at it, you look at it at proper speed. She's moving.
Yeah.
She's walking, but boy, is she moving. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
I find it compelling. So
Yeah. Now I see the comment in there on head, and I think about the head low on the shoulders, and how she had to turn her body to move. But I think that could be argued. I think that's an artifact of a costume that would have the low head on the shoulders. The same way, you'd still have a hard time being able to turn the head like we can, if it were someone in a costume.
Yeah, here's another thought for that one. You guys remember the original 1929 series, Buck Rogers?
mhm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Remember that, black and white?
Is it that old?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay, now the interesting thing about that, I don't know why I clicked on it to see what these videos were. I mean, I know of it in that, but I wanted to see how cheesy visually things were accepted as being entertainment, and the level, even if we looked on those videos, they're so cheesy, but not to the audience of the day. That was suspense for them.
Right.
Right. So, but the interesting thing is in season 1, and I think it's episode 3, people keep, I'll back up a little bit. People online always talk about, well, there's no way they could make that muscular stuff and all that kind of stuff. I think it's season 1, episode 3, it might be episode 4. They have a gorilla costume on there, and it has a huge horn on the front of its head, and it's got muscles. That was back in 1929. And I want to pull that up and use it in a video because I thought the idea is, well, they can't ever do it. I thought it was a pretty good, I thought it was at least a 60s or 70s gorilla that they would have on like the Carol Burnett show or some other Brothers show back in the day where it would maul people, like the bear. There's another one they had with a bear costume. But it was pretty good, I thought, for that back in 1929. That was interesting. I hope it's 1929. I know it's way back there.
Look, the early 30s, Bela Lugosi, Murder at the Rue Morgue.
Right.
The old gorilla costume in that movie. I think that was 1933, 32, somewhere around there. And
we're aging ourselves. Look how wise we are. We're all wise owls here.
Yeah, the R Gang and all them. They have someone with a gorilla suit on.
Yeah.
It looks good for the few seconds it's on film, of course, but.
Well,
again,
he had to fight this one, so you get a real good look at it because they're going at each other. He's going at it with a knife or something. They're dancing around the room in the tights they wore as space outfits. So,
but again, in the debate, they're going to bring all that up, all the inconsistencies and stuff that's been repeated over the time of that. All you can say is, I'm a researcher. I'm trying to find out one way or the other, does this attribute exist? And I agree with you on the point. It really does not make logical sense why something in that quality since the PG film has not occurred since.
Yep.
Especially with all the cameras that are people carrying around with them today. And they have a very good point on that. And they do.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things that bugged the hell out of me is why one of these things have not been picked up on the wildlife crossings in Banff National Park in Alberta. All wildlife have to use these overpasses and tunnels. They have to. There's no other way to get across, east to west. And I used to investigate sightings in the early 1980s in Banff National Park myself before they built the wildlife fences along the highway. I remember when all that started. I even had looked in one convincing report where the creature was seen in the island between the east and westbound lanes. So you had the lanes separated with these islands of trees in between.
Yep.
But they've had the cameras going now on these overpasses since the mid 1990s. The only out they have, and it's getting to be a narrow one, is the cameras are not 24/7, 365. You know, they put them out for 3 days here, a week there, that kind of thing. But in that time, they have picked up footage of every large animal we know exists in the park, except guess what?
A hippopotamus, a giraffe.
Yeah. I mean, they've picked up everything. They've even picked up footage of some pretty strange people.
Yeah.
But they have not picked up footage of Sasquatch, and that is a hell of an argument to try and get around. And while the inmates running their asylum would just say, well, they ship-shaped or whatever. Yeah, but if it's a biped, an unknown biped, that is really hard to get around, and it really bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah,
I mean, they're so good. They know that grizzly bears that were alive when they built the tunnels and overpasses wouldn't use them. But grizzly bears born since their construction have no problem with them. They were able to get enough photographic evidence and studies to confirm that. Because when they first noticed that the bears that were alive when they were constructed wouldn't use them, they were worried about that.
Yep.
They were really worried about that. But it seemed like the young born since then have no problem with the darn things. Yeah. There you go. Why has not a Sasquatch been picked up in one of these wildlife overpasses or tunnels? There's not a go around. I mean, there has to be a go around. There is tunnels and there are overpasses, which they covered in trees and bush, so wildlife can get. The whole reason they did it was so many animals were being killed by cars. You know, they tried to get people to slow down by having what they called the red flag campaign for a couple of years, and it was terrible. You saw literally thousands of these little red flags that they put out, everything from a squirrel to an elk to a grizzly bear, right? But that didn't work. People still wouldn't slow down, so they finally decided to build wildlife fences and tunnels at first, and when the tunnels didn't seem to be doing the job for the bears and stuff, they built overpasses. And they've monitored them off and on since their construction in the mid-1990s. And, well, it's getting to almost be 30 years, and they've picked up footage of everything you can think of in the Rocky Mountain wilderness except Sasquatch.
Off and on or continually?
Again, that's the one out. They're not continuous. They put them out for a week here, a week there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But is that the one out? I mean, does this stretch of highway go for 500 miles with that setup?
It goes through Banff National Park, all the way from Banff to Lake Louise in the north.
I don't know what
that
is.
And it runs north to south.
area.
If you want to get, any wildlife that wants to go west to east has to cross Highway 1.
Like if you're looking
That's a
for
real long area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You have the same thing in Washington in the Ellensburg Pass. And we have it here in BC in the Coquihalla Highway.
Right.
Yep. Except there's no overpasses. They're all
Okay,
tunnels. Yeah.
so there's a fence along that stretch.
Both sides of the highway, yeah.
Right. How high is that fence?
8 feet.
Okay.
Actually, taller than that. It was more like 12 to 15 feet.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just depends what zones they're in.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, if you will indulge me, couldn't the Sasquatch just climb up a tree and hop right over that fence, no problem, wherever they want?
Going one way, but not the other way.
Yeah, there's no fence on the roadside of on the side of the fence along the road. Yeah.
All right,
There's
so
no trees on that
no
side.
trees on the other side
Yeah.
to negotiate that.
Clear visual for the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right, so they would have to negotiate the actual fence,
Yeah.
which is probably designed for deer, elk, bear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem too is there are a variety of different types because they have gates too. So elk can go through a certain area and they're kind of like, they look like a rib cage that's in the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So the elk can go through that, but they can't come back this way because the points of the rib cage face coming back
Out.
this direction.
No.
Now, what you're talking about though too is it's like Steve's talking about, is it's a huge, huge area. And to cover everything, every bridge that's there with a camera, to cover, even these elk or moose or deer gates they have there, you're talking hundreds of cameras. And you'd have to, the only way I can see doing a project like that is, like you said, Thomas, we're not going to win the, super lotto or anything from the States anytime soon. But is to do it in regions of small organizational Bigfoot, Sasquatch, depending on whether you are in the Canada or the States, organizations to do a chunk of the area so that at least 20 of their areas or 20 of their locations can be monitored by using cams, like stealth cams or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and you'd have to get authorization to use that because in a lot of these areas, they don't like private citizens putting up cameras.
We're talking a national park in Banff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would be.
But the Coquihalla Highway in British Columbia, that's crown land on both sides there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, the connector between Kelowna and over towards Merritt there too. That's all open too, so we could get access to that as well. And that's that's the highest elevation that we have to drive to get over to where you are there, Tom.
Yeah. And it's I had an idea about 15 years ago. I called it the Coquihalla Project, but like Leon said, I didn't have $2 million to throw away. I thought,
Nice.
no,
you
or
don't.
$1 million or anything.
Really?
But,
I do.
We could cover those tunnels with
I have
solar
5
powered
rainbows.
cameras, and not just the tunnels, anything big enough for a man to get through. That means the creek tunnels and the river tunnels as well. And enough time went by and we got video footage of every large animal we know is in the area. But in that same amount of time, we don't get footage of a Sasquatch, and that would convince me that there's no Sasquatch to get.
I know, and that means we're all crazy. We're as crazy as the madness out here. That's how bad it would be.
No, we're researchers. Either trying to prove or disprove the existence of the Sasquatch, and we got to accept the possibility that disproving could be the case.
Yeah. I'm not.
Yeah.
Just for the
What are
record,
the chances they could 100% detect and evade the cameras?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, you can always go around and that merry-go-round, they can detect and evade. Well, that gets old after a while.
Yeah, I
agree. There's no evidence of that.
Yeah.
Here's a good thing for the people watching us.
People sure can't avoid them.
Yeah. Is on your browser, go up and do a Google search on animals that can see infrared light.
Right.
And you know how many you'll find ever existing? 0. It's not a single animal that has ever existed out of the 200 million years of having creatures on the planet that can see it. Insects can, some fish can,
Right.
no birds can, and no animal can. So the idea that they can detect that's not what they're detecting. Maybe electronics, maybe, or click.
No, there are the low glow cameras, which if you're looking at them, the light on that camera will bleed into the visual. And you can see that if you're looking directly at it, you can see that glow. And then there are the no glow cameras that I like to use, where the LEDs do not bleed enough into the visual light that we can see them. And you'll see that deer will look up at the camera on the low glow cameras, and you usually don't see that with the no glow cameras.
Right.
Well, I've seen a lot
But
of
I've never seen a
footage.
Bigfoot look at the light on the camera. So
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if this road, does this road roughly go north-south traveling?
East-west.
Between Banff and Lake Louise in Alberta, yeah, right through Banff National Park, and then it turns west as it goes into British Columbia.
That's right.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it's more of a east-west road.
Well, it goes
Um,
north-south, and then when it heads to BC, it goes east-west.
I'm just wondering how much territory on one side or the other is there
Thousands of
for them to
kilometers.
not even care.
Hundreds and hundreds of miles of wilderness on both sides of that highway. Yeah.
That could be your explanation right there.
Well, and again, again, that's I've
If
never
they have the
done a survey to
habitat.
see what kind of transitional zones they have in the fence. I bet you there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I can guarantee you they stick with the major routes. Like you're saying, Thomas, they spend $1.7 million for those overpasses with
Yeah.
trees in it and stuff like that. That's where they're going to do their camera shots, not all these other.
Yeah.
And those are about 1 in every 5 to 10 of these other access exit things that they have that are a lot
Right,
more-
right, and they don't cover both ends at the same time. They put them on one end for a couple of days, then they may move them to the other end, and then then they're not covering that overpass at all. They move them to the next one and stuff
Right.
like that. So it could be they've just been bad luck, but it just bothers me that they've picked up everything except.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I all I know is that I know for a fact that you could be in an airplane flying over northern North America for 3 hours. And I mean there's just so much remoteness out there. So much remoteness. It's
You could
it's
do
almost
that.
mind-boggling.
Like and that's the funny thing is like 90% of Canada's population is 100 miles from the border, U.S.
Yeah.
border,
Exactly.
and so you have the
So I'd say they don't care.
the second largest country in the world, and 90% of it's above us. And
Yeah.
that's forest. That's all forest. And
All
you're talking,
forest.
the
Yeah.
time zones and stuff. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
You can say in British Columbia there are areas where people have never trod before, and that's undoubtedly true. But I think a more accurate description is if you're on that shoreline or that ridge, you may be the first person to stand in that area in 20 years, and there may not be somebody else for another 20 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
easily.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing some of my research just on where reports were, I'd hear someone talk about a remote area of Michigan. And when I look at maps of Michigan, it's hard to find a place that's 5 miles from a paved road in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
and here in Washington, the last video I did was the easternmost path between the two major roads across the pass. The next paved road east of there is 100 miles away. That goes between those two
Wow, that's
major highways.
that's actually kind of crazy to think about in the United States. Wow.
Yeah,
Go to, in British Columbia, you travel north from the Washington border. You can go all the way to the Yukon. You only cross 3 major road systems. Only 3.
Yukon's by Alaska, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
That's a lot of wilderness. Yeah.
You're talking
Yeah.
a good
Mhm.
1,000, 2,000 kilometers
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
the south border to the north border of British Columbia. I can't remember. It might even be a little longer or shorter.
Well, we actually have something similar here. It's more condensed. It's a little more condensed. It's 100 to 300 miles wide. It's called the Appalachian Mountains,
Mhm.
which go from North Georgia all the way to Maine, and it's almost uninterrupted, just wild natural habitat. Go get on Google Earth right now and just look at it. The Appalachian chain is green. It's just a huge green belt that goes up the entire East Coast. Past New York City all the way up into Maine.
yeah. I had a job that took me out to Carolina every evening. I took a few hours before dinner to drive along the Appalachian Highway, and see as much of that as I could see. Beautiful country.
I just want to say, if you see me go offline periodically, I'm just checking on my horses.
Oh, how many horses do you have, Leon? I'm curious.
I just lost one at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I know. I don't. I did not mean to bring that up, dude. I
had more
I'm
news today.
I'm still sad about that. I remember that night.
So yeah, if you see me black out here,
You have 2 horses.
Yeah, 2 horses, 20-some chickens, exotic chickens. 4 of these chickens are there's 604 left on the planet. They're almost extinct. So, but they're stupid. You can see why they're almost extinct. We're black chickens. Let's sit on a fence pole overnight and don't move.
Yeah.
And when the coyotes come over, as long as we don't move because we're black, they won't see me.
Well, all chickens.
Okay,
are stupid,
603.
All chickens are stupid. That's why they're in abundance in the freezer section of our grocery store.
Well, this is totally off target.
Yeah.
But
Well, we're getting back to the subject there. Patrick in the comments writes, what physical evidence do they have to disprove the existence compared to all that has been reported and physical evidence? Well, Patrick, my answer to that is their biggest, this is the skeptic perspective, of course. Their biggest argument is the lack of hard evidence, not anecdotal evidence. Yeah. You can call what's physical to you and me, i.e. tracks and reports and stuff like that you mentioned, is all anecdotal evidence to them. When it comes to the world of science, the only thing that could call hard physical evidence is physical remains, something to lay out on the table that they can examine. And that's what science has always demanded. And until that happens, that's why the Sasquatch will remain in the realm of cryptozoology rather than the realm of everyday zoology.
Yeah, but I will point out to that over the last 20 years or so, there are more and more species that are being recognized by photograph and DNA, but you can photograph them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're clear, and you can see how they differentiate from other species, and then from the DNA you can see how they differentiate from other similar species. We're moving away from the time where science actually needs the body on the slab, but we still have to be able to figure out where they are so we can actually get pictures and actually collect DNA.
But even that, they'll just say that will get the ball rolling.
Yes, they would. But that's what we need. I would argue that's what we need. That's the only thing we need is to get the ball rolling to bridge that gap. And that's what I'm going with tomorrow is that idea of bridging the gap.
Yeah.
Not to convince the fucking world that Sasquatch exists, but to just make a compelling argument that is
why we need to look into it.
Yeah.
There's 2 areas you should push on, 2 fronts. First of all, is anybody who's a Bigfoot researcher who happens to catch the debate to up their game, to provide high quality, much better quality than what we've been doing the last 10, 15 years. Because this mentality that's out there about, science, them against us.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist only in, Thomas would say, in their minds or in a person's mind. Because I don't have an issue with academics. I don't have a problem if I came across something, I would definitely contact the academics and say, I need you to assist me with this. I got something I need to show you here. I don't think they're going to run from it if it's pretty freaking solid. But if it's not solid, you're just giving them, there's no meat on the bones. And we have to start providing meat on the bones as citizen researchers so that they can say,
I agree.
There's something that we're missing here. You guys look at it. They've got this. All we need is one bone with some actual meat on it, literally.
Well, I don't know how the hell we're going to get that.
Well, the thing is we have to throw everything we used to do out the window. Let me change that a little bit. Not necessarily the ideas and concepts, but the way we've been doing the things, because we're not doing it correctly. We're not doing it professionally and efficiently. We've been doing it this kind of I don't want to say la-di-da kind of way, feeling that our method is good at what we're doing, it's not good enough. That's the bottom line. The whole slow can thing up there, I mean, if the president of the BFRO, where most of us go and see if we have things around our area, if he can't even have a standard, that this is like finding out all of a sudden you've been born into a cult and you realized, and you're the only one in the family members that realize there's something really bad about all this belief system I'm now carrying. Because you find out that dad's actually cheating on mom, even though he's not supposed to, because he's very, spiritual or whatever like that,
Yeah.
It's a huge threat to a person's belief system.
It is. But
Belief system. I'm looking for facts. I want to find out
Exactly.
how to look for facts. Help me. We're talking to Patrick a couple of nights ago or last week, and it's important for him to help us, to show us what he's saying is he's experiencing, so that we can maybe use some of his information, but he has to help us see what it is and how he finds them, and all these very systematic ways he does that, so that maybe we can use some of those resources. I know we're in different regions, and the ecological systems will be different, so there may be a slight variance in behavior, but there might be something in what other people can provide that would assist us in our areas. So, but I have to show that, Steve would have to show that, Thomas would have to show that for our select group kind of that we've started to, our networking that we've been getting together with people. That's the people we're looking for. We need you to help us understand how you know for sure it's that. And then challenge yourself to help to figure out a way to help us do it without just saying, well, I've seen them do this. Okay, can you help us understand how, first of all, how you found them? Secondly, how when you've seen them do it, what do you mean seen it, like behind all these greenery leaves and stuff like that? Is that what you mean? And you sense that's what they were doing? And even if you did sense it, did you go over and check to see what it was? Did you know what was there before? These are time-consuming questions, but they're the right things to do, the actions. Mm-hmm. The actions are time-consuming. The ideas aren't. They just come into your head. But they go.
One of the first things that science is really going to need is ways to either find where they are or draw them in, so that we have the opportunity to collect more evidence and collect evidence more reliably.
Yes, 100%, Steve.
I think a lot could be done with environmental DNA, actually.
But not if you can't find it. How are you going to find it? Somebody says it?
I mean,
that goes around the whole forest, and you just vacuum up the air in the ground, and you get
I agree. Yes,
well, a good way to
know where to look.
A good way to do that would be to be collecting the water that's coming out of a broad drainage area, and using a filter that collects the DNA out of that drainage area for 6 months to a year or so.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely right. Good one.
And then you do what eDNA does, is you sequence absolutely everything in that sample, and then that's where it gets really expensive, because what I've talked about so far is pretty cheap. But then you need the supercomputer time to take those millions and millions of sequences that you've collected and try to align them up and string them together into the larger sequences that tell you what is living up there. Now, they did that with Loch Ness, and 25% of the DNA they had was in fragments that were so small they couldn't align them and couldn't use them. So 25% of that DNA from that experiment got thrown out. Of the rest of what they collected, they found everything that is expected to be found in that ecosystem, plus a few other things they didn't know were there, but they didn't find anything that looks like a dinosaur.
Well, yes, the conclusion of that is the Loch Ness Monster is not a dinosaur.
Yeah.
They found eel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Loch Ness is famous for its eel population.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like giant eel?
It's giant. Normally about maybe 3 to 4 feet. Sometimes a little bigger. one of the theories is a monster may be an extreme version of this, but we don't know.
Aren't there sturgeon in Loch Ness?
Yeah, it's Atlantic sturgeon.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Those things are like.
There's also seals in Loch Ness.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Sturgeon, they look like monsters to me.
Yeah.
I was like, the first time I ever found out there was sturgeon in that lake, I was like, well, that's what it is. You know,
Do you ever get a good close look up at a moose? I mean, that is a creature
No.
from another time.
The only moose I've ever seen was one mounted, like on it was in a restaurant in upstate New York.
Not in Faulty Towers, was it?
Dude, I'm from the South. I live in Georgia, born and raised. Yeah, I have no idea what a moose looks like in real life. And I saw a moose mounted on the wall in upstate New York, and I was like, holy shit, that's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
They are so big. Like, they're 8 feet tall. They're
And bigger
huge.
sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see
They're
it, like some of the big moose up here, the males with their racks on their heads, man. That's 8 feet across, a massive palate, huge shoulders. You know,
amazing. I never knew anything in North America could get that big. So that blew my mind. You know, like with a known animal.
If you want a great laugh, look up Les Stroud's worst story ever.
Oh yeah, the most he'll say to this day, the most dangerous situation he's ever been in after everything he's ever done was when he got chased by a male moose, probably during the rut.
Yep.
You know, and that thing, I think it like he said, it chased him for a couple miles. Or I mean,
they're hormonally crazy.
Yeah.
Literally. They're hormonally crazy in their head. And that's that. They're not thinking nothing. It's just raw instinct attack.
He thought that moose was going to kill him, and it probably was trying to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he somehow he got away from it. But yeah.
The most amazing thing in Alberta when I was there, I had with the moose was we were in this bramble area that's so thick you couldn't move without crack, crang, bang, crack, breaking branches and everything. I mean, it was that thick. And we saw the full head and rack of a great big bull moose sticking out of this stuff, and it just retreated straight back in and left the area. And we never heard it break a single twig. Mm. That monstrous thing was able to move through that stuff and not make a sound.
Really?
Yeah, and we couldn't. We couldn't even shift our feet without making crack, bang, crisp, crack, bang. Couldn't do it. But that thing did. It was amazing. Also, another thing is people finding these twisted or bent over trees. I've seen moose straddling young trees and pushing them over to eat at the stuff at the top. Thing cracks. It's over. Moose leaves it that way. 3 weeks later, someone comes by and said, what did this? Had to be Sasquatch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the debate in the science approach, we've covered a lot of things that they can really actually talk about. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is to go in with the approach of, I'm trying to understand what's actually going on out there. Yep. There is absolutely something that we can go ahead and we can call it Bigfoot, whatever it is, because lots of people are having the Bigfoot experience. What we don't know is what it all is, and it's probably a whole bunch of different things, and one of those things might be an unknown hominid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let Pat should go in before I say, as researchers, we admit that in the end, the skeptical world may be right.
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, people listening to us is remember we're doing a strategy plan for someone going on a debate show that's going to be talking to people who don't necessarily buy into it. I've never seen a Sasquatch before. If people who are watching and start commenting about, well, I've seen one and I know they exist. Well, great.
Yeah, I know. I'm not in your eyes. You know,
Yeah, you know.
there are a lot of people who claim to have seen one and they're lying through their damn teeth.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a reality.
Yeah, like the one in Kelowna who had the experience of someone coming into their yard, destroying the garbage bin, wrecking the front gate. Here's a picture of it. And it's all BS.
Yeah.
You know, but and to go public and to go to the news and have the news write this story. I mean, think of the psyche of a person who would do this, and then stick by the guns until ask the right questions, and then the yelping and cowardness. Yeah, run away.
Yeah.
Don't hang up. Don't answer the calls anymore. Don't answer Leon's emails, Matt. Now that I'm asking you the right questions, and I'm telling you what we're doing, and you're going to be totally wrong. And all of us here know there were moose tracks because we showed everybody online with us online, and everyone said, "Those look like moose tracks." Yeah, dainty Sasquatch track. That's what they are.
See, Pat, you just need to go in there and basically admit that, we understand that the world of science does not operate like the legal system. Eyewitness testimony really doesn't mean very much.
Yeah.
People see, people mistake things, people make things up. People generally lie. Some people, if the Sasquatch exists, are telling the truth. The point is, that's what we're trying to find out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the world of science, anecdote is not evidence. And I have to agree with that because it's not evidence. It's just what you say.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this. Well, that's not evidence. That's just
and it certainly is a problem that there isn't this big chain of reasonably reliable physical evidence to really prove there is a group of something living out there.
Well, and there's other sides of it too, because my brain just keeps focusing on these other micro topics. And it's funny how the Western culture has evolved the First Nations stories to fit the narrative of the day for today. Compared to if you went back and if you get a hold of old interviews of First Nations stories about Sasquatch or Bigfoot, some were closed, some had fires, some had like spears. So they were humanoid beings. They weren't like hairy men kind of thing, long hair meaning, not hair over the body kind of thing. And that's interesting to start dabbling in the next level of stuff I'm kind of tapping into right now.
There are even some stories I've run across of them fighting alongside Native Americans in the Revolutionary War.
Yes, and Thomas Seawood, I remember him talking about they came down when the Black Plague or the plague, the British were using infected blankets that they gave the First Nations. And of course, the Sasquatches came down and talked to their people, these are his words, notifying them of what are you doing? You're killing us. And his tribe said, well, they're killing us as well. And like Thomas and I, which I appreciate, there's folklore, and somewhere is the folklore about managing people in a system, the tribe, to keep them safe, or little kids educated about what not to do, stay inside at nighttime. We have in my own family tradition. We came from the eastern part of block of Russia, Poland area, Ukraine area, and you never went out at night because of the bandits. The bandits are going to get you, and the bandits will carry you away. All cultures kind of have a similar story of don't stay out at nighttime. It's not a good
monster in the woods.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
and so there's a primal history in our psyche that seems to go common across the board. Was fire just invented by one person on the whole bloody planet? Well, no, apparently not. But imagine the first time you could show somebody, I can make fire. Your asset levels for that environment of that tribe has just gone up 1,000-fold. And then you have to reproduce it. And then you teach somebody else. And this is what we're talking about, a scientific method. Somebody had to figure out how to make something hot enough to get it ignited. Then he showed somebody else. And then he showed somebody else. And all these people who started to learn it can all say, well, we can all do this.
Well, the first thing they figured out how to do was to keep that spark and keep it alive while they moved to the next camp.
Yeah, and that probably took a couple of 100 years to figure that one out.
Maybe, yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Maybe quicker even, because we're
It's
pretty
not,
cool.
decades at least, right? Yeah.
That's a good point, Steve.
Well, I've learned how to make fire in the Bigfoot world. So I'm the fire maker. I think I am. So
But are you?
yes. I mean, you go chase them, keep chasing them, keep going out there and chasing them, see what happens.
Well, consider the possibility. Okay, if they had fire, and if they actually gave fire up because we could see their camps because of the column of smoke coming up from the fire, and then we would make problems for them. Wow. That's a big sacrifice.
Yep. I don't know. I think they might have a higher conscious availability to them, but I don't think they're as smart as we're smart.
Yeah.
I tend to think along the lines of a chimpanzee or orangutan, but then again, that's just based on my own opinions.
Well, there was a phrase. There was a phrase I really liked in a movie, and the title is escaping me, but it was basically talking about the previous two. If you look at the evolution of man as a linear thing, which is not really accurate, but Homo erectus or so, and they were probably as intelligent as, I'm trying to remember the exact word. They were probably as intelligent as us. They had the same capacity for thinking. They just didn't know as much. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have cars.
Well, they live in a
their brain had the capacity to be able to do these things.
Well, assuming the Sasquatch does indeed exist, and I do believe it does. Assuming it does, I think it's simple. We evolved. We had to evolve to deal with things like weather, climate, and stuff. And we did that because we developed our brains. And we basically invented things, housing, heat, clothing, stuff to deal with that. If we didn't have that ability and we were just survived as a species, there was only one other answer. We'd have to grow very large and have a body coating of hair.
Right.
So I think it's no coincidence that the one other higher primate in the North American continent seems to be a very big and furry one.
Yeah.
If people were reporting something the size of a New World monkey running around all over the Pacific Northwest of the United States and Canada, there'd be something evolutionarily wrong. So it's no surprise if it's not intelligent enough to deal with its environment the way we deal with it, it deals with it in other ways. It becomes very big, robust, and physically.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
We've changed
the
too.
only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've changed too. It was very rare back in the 1300s and stuff for a man to be over 6 feet tall.
God, yeah.
Yeah. You look at old forts and stuff back then, they look like they were the hallways and the doorways were made for children. And you look at actual clothing, they look like they were made for children. And Henry VIII was considered a giant because he was 6'3".
Right. Yeah, I know. And I mean, how we all know somebody that's 6'3".
Yeah.
That's an interesting discussion right there. How we've changed. And
that's just over a few centuries,
or even a century. One could argue. Even just the past century, the physicality of men, I'll say, is changed quite a bit, I think.
Oh yeah, go into a museum and look up British armory and look up medieval knights, and you'll see the armor's like for children, 5'1", that kind of.
Wow. Yeah, really.
Oh yeah, but it's incredible how strong they were, because they may have been 5'1", but those swords were still like 20 pounds. They could lift them.
Yeah.
They were incredibly heavy. Yeah, and they were very robust, but they lived short lives, right? If you,
Well,
it was
yeah,
very
I mean-
rare to get over 45. You know.
Yeah, I mean, back then, I mean, you couldn't survive a tooth infection.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was like pretty much the number one cause of death. You know,
Well, in wildlife, that's why animals in zoos live a lot longer, because the main killer is basically dental problems.
Okay, I guess I better go brush my teeth. I get the hint, okay? Come back off.
hey, I've had a tooth infection, man. It's no
Yeah.
joke.
Oh, I know.
yeah.
Like it's like blow your brains out pain.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the 1200s, we'd bleed you. We put leeches on you. We pull all the teeth out around it so it didn't spread.
Yeah. Well, what I think is funny is most people, they talk about a root canal as being a terrible thing. No, the root canal is incredible relief.
Right.
Even though it's massively painful. Like just
That's where I learned one of my favorite terms: profoundly numb.
Profoundly numb. Yeah, I like that actually. Which is, I mean, you would think Sasquatch would have to deal with the same, but they probably have really wide teeth. At omnivore.
If you put any money into what Mitchell Townsend has put together, their teeth are very much more like Neanderthal than ours, and the surface area is about 4 times the surface area. They're about twice the dimension in each direction.
Yeah, so big teeth.
Yeah. But yeah,
Big teeth for a big mouth and a big head on a big animal.
yeah.
And I so what do you mean by Neanderthal teeth?
So if you look at our history, our teeth have changed shape over the last few 100,000 years. And the teeth marks that are in the bones that he has identified are shaped like hominid teeth, but they're a lot closer to the shape of Neanderthal teeth than our teeth.
So what are Neanderthal teeth like? I'm just curious. I don't know that.
I would need to go onto Google and find some of the references that he referred to. They're also in his book, I believe.
Okay.
Steve, if Thomas showed you the lower jaw of the Australopithecus behind him, could you narrate the difference between that jaw and what it would look like?
What I'd actually want to do is he had a really good progression over several classifications of hominid, starting from Neanderthal up through Homo sapiens, and it was the shapes on the surface of the molars, and the way they worked and the way they operated.
They're much more robust than we were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard theories that, like a Neanderthal could like break his finger and not even like care about it. But I don't know how they would know that, but
I think it would still hurt.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Angry.
He just kind of go.
I wouldn't go up and poke him. Hey, does that hurt?
Well, I mean, we're responsible for taking them out. I mean,
Our ancestors are. I think it's more the case.
Our ancestors, correct?
Yeah. We
Kill
bred
them.
them out.
Kill them
Yeah.
all.
I think it's more accurate to say we brought them into the family.
Mm-hmm. We bred them out. Yeah, started.
I would say that probably came more at the tip of a spear than the tip of a.
Well, there's about 15% of Neanderthal DNA across a good portion of the human population.
I don't think it's 15%, dude. Like, I think the most you'll ever find in one person is 5%. That would be remarkable, actually.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's about 15% of the human population.
Has any? Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I misinterpret what you're saying.
But not in
Right.
Asia, I don't think. Not in Asia.
Correct. You're right, Leon. They Asians. It's very extremely rare to find any Neanderthal.
Yeah. And so when you look at the Neanderthal population too, is they had to somehow connect up because their population was very low, but they seem to connect up over vast areas, and this is where the traditional sites were. Here's my sister. This is your brother. Give me your brother for my other tribe's sister, and I'll give you my sister for one of your other guys's for a wife for your other, to keep the gene pool going, because it was.
I tell you the truth. I don't think Neanderthal cared much. I don't think incest was such a problem in there.
Oh, Thomas, get your mind out of the gutter. Remember,
When we were growing up, the Neanderthals looked like, every cartoon about caveman.
Arr!
We're totally wrong on that whole thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they were funny looking. I mean, to us, they didn't look like humans. That's for sure. They weren't human beings.
They're basically a person who could probably break us in two if they wanted to. But they were quite robust and they were quite strong. But so were our ancestors were probably much weaker than them, but they were smarter than them.
Yeah,
that was the difference. Yeah,
more mobile.
Yeah,
yeah. Learn how to make
We hired
spear.
them to be bouncers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pat, is there anything you're kind of for tomorrow? Are you worried about anything, or anything you want to talk about in regards to what you might be concerned about tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Wow. Like right now in my state, because I'm hanging out with you guys, I'm actually quite comfortable because I'm in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
That
So are
makes
you
sense?
taking any notes?
So you want us to
Yes.
act like them and
Oh,
put you on the defensive?
Do you want us to message you behind the scenes on your Facebook page so we can tell you, ask this question now, ask that question now, like you're getting a feed in your ear?
No, I mean we could have a little small mock debate if you guys want to. That's fine. If you guys really want to push me,
I haven't watched their channel enough to really understand their style. It's not so much debate as it is interview, at least from what I've watched. What I watched
depends on the topic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, they may hit you with things like this, Pat. Can you tell me why, in 53 years since the so-called Patterson Gimlin film, why nothing of that magnitude has happened since? How do you explain that, Pat?
My best explanation for that is this.
Drake.
Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin spent 2 weeks out in the woods on horseback shooting B-roll for Roger's documentary. And in a very remote area that people were not really around, and they just got lucky. They were on horseback. No one's ever tried that since. That's never been replicated since then. So my best explanation is the fact that happened in a very unique way. And since then, no one's ever tried it that way. And
are you sure? You sure no one's looking for Sasquatch to shoot horses?
Maybe, but they haven't done it thousands of times. They haven't done it enough times.
But Pat, speaking as Johnny Skeptic with a PhD here,
okay.
So many of these accounts I've read over years are people seeing them crossing in front of their cars and stuff like that. Yet everyone today has a dash cam, and we're just not seeing it. How do you explain that?
I wouldn't say that everyone has a dash cam. I don't understand that statement.
Well,
I don't have a dash cam.
I do.
Is it,
and lots of people do.
Is it required By your insurance company or something?
Yeah, well,
No,
we don't live in Russia where everyone basically needs
No,
to have a dash
but to
cam.
tell you honest truth, Pat, speaking not as a skeptic, I have one in case I ever do have a Sasquatch problem.
Okay. See?
That's why I have a dash
Gotcha.
cam. But a lot of people have dash cams nowadays, so they're going to hit you with, why hasn't any one of these picked up a Sasquatch? I look at YouTube. There are thousands of videos of people hitting bears with their dash cams.
Yeah, okay, so I'll say this: roadside crossings are actually very rare. They're not common. They're extremely rare. So
that's right. You don't hear about the 1,000 cars that pass that way and the private truckers that didn't see anything.
Yeah. I mean, so when they happen, and then again, the only thing we have to go off of is when people actually that does happen and they come forward with it. So even given that factor, roadside crossings are extremely rare. So therefore, dash cams are pretty much irrelevant to that discussion about why don't we see them on dash cams? Like, well, I mean, how many airplane crashes have you seen on dash cams? I can name one.
Crashes I've seen.
Yeah.
I can think of a dozen on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
On dash cams?
Not dash cams, but video cams.
Yeah, no, but dash cam. We're talking dash cam now. So therefore, roadside crossings are actually quite rare. So the chances of capturing one on film, which may or may not have even happened. You can look. There are videos with dash cams where supposedly a big crosses the road.
Maybe
I was hoping you would point that out when I asked the question.
Yeah, I can think of maybe
it's
two.
inconclusive. It's inconclusive.
Yeah,
it could have been a guy in a suit. Like you just can't tell.
It's there's not enough contrast in the image to really see what was there.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
well then they'll probably hit you. Why hasn't something passion given them film quality happened since that day in 1967?
Again, because no one's using that same technique, and it's kind of it's a strange irony that technology has gotten better, but and so now we get to modern day where everyone has a camera in their pocket. Well, I'm sorry, if you're walking through the woods and a velociraptor pops off the trail right into your face, is the first thing you're thinking about pulling your phone? Pull my phone out and take a picture of this velociraptor? Or are you going to sit there and go, why is there a fucking velociraptor staring me in the face right now? This thing should be extinct. It doesn't belong here. So that shock factor. The last thing that people think about when a Bigfoot reveals themselves to a person, the last thing they're thinking about is pulling their phone out and taking a picture of it. They're just trying not to piss their pants.
Okay, still playing devil's advocate here, Pat.
Fair enough.
And this is an old one, and it's been used before.
Okay.
With all the hunting going on out there,
no, I'm not.
Hunting season. Why hasn't anyone shot a Sasquatch, Pat? How do you explain that?
Well, the best explanation I have for that, and I've some information to go off of, but I don't have the complete picture, I'll admit, is that it seems to be, again, I'm going off anecdotal accounts here. That's all I have to go off of because I've never been in that situation. It seems to be that whenever a hunter who's armed comes face to face with a Sasquatch, for whatever reason, they just don't want to pull that trigger.
Because it looks too human. That's usually what they say.
And that is a factor. Thank you.
That's important. That you need to say that.
But
you're right.
People shoot people every day.
True. Yeah. If somebody points a gun at me in a threatening way, I'm going to shoot him in the face. You're right. If somebody pulls a knife on me and says, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to shoot him in the face. You're right. I have no problem shooting a human being.
And you might want to point out most of your hunters are law-abiding citizens who are not pull-happy morons like the other side tries to predict all the time when they're trying to shove gun control down our faces. But you know,
I agreed. So they're out there looking for, four-legged angulates, right? Not something standing on 2 feet. Angulates. Did I say that one?
Okay, well then they'll turn around, and this has happened before. Again, playing devil's advocate. Why hasn't a hunter shot one by mistake, mistaking it for a bear? How do you explain that, Pat?
Because that would involve a hallucination, not mistaken identity,
or fear of getting caught and being in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. I don't buy into the idea of mistaking an 8-foot-tall monkey man, for who's actually a bear.
Oh yeah, but Pat, I've even interviewed people who thought they were looking at a bear at first because the creature was either kneeling or doing something else. They realized, they realized it wasn't a bear when it stood up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get that too. I'm not trying to make it a black and white thing. I'm just saying.
No, but they are. They are.
I know.
Yeah, they're going to ask you stuff like this.
But when push comes to shove, I always have the one thing to fall back on is that an 8-foot-tall monkey man cannot be a misidentification of a bear. Like that's saying a fox is a Komodo dragon. That's a hallucination. It's not a misidentification. You're hallucinating at that point. So,
unless it's behind enough brush that you can see something big is there, and you don't know what it is, and you want your bear, so you go ahead and shoot because that's got to be what it is.
Yeah,
but then you're liable to find out it's another hunter.
I don't think a hunter would do that until they had at least some kind of clear silhouette of a bear.
A good hunter wouldn't, but
So, Steve, do you have questions you would ask him in a debate?
Me ask them?
No, not you, Pat. Steve, if you have questions you would ask Pat if you were in this debate. And you
if Steve, you're the skeptical science guy. Remember.
Well, I understand that. Honestly, Thomas has actually covered most of the ones that I would ask. And it has to do with, why aren't people unable to find evidence reliably?
Yeah.
If these things are out there everywhere, as people seem to claim that they are,
I don't think they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't think they're everywhere. I think they are only in certain habitats. They're not everywhere.
So
no one's ever seen one in downtown Chicago.
Yeah, well, I have, but it's during a rave. But
understandable.
But if there are people spending so much time actually looking for these creatures, why are at least a few of them not able to find them reliably enough that they can say these creatures are here and I can show you where they are?
How do you explain that, Pat?
You guys
I would explain that in a few different ways. Is that some people may find evidence of them and then lose the trail, or so they know they're around somewhere. But if you're talking about a more specific thing, which I've always been skeptical of, which somebody is like, I know where they are. All I can say is this. Those people, if they're for real, and that's an actual thing, if you were that guy, would you go walking up into their camp? Would you approach them as directly approach them and get up on them? If you could, would you do that? You wouldn't. Would you approach a pod of grizzly bears? Would you approach a pod of Tyrannosaurus Rexes? Dude, these are big, intimidating things. You don't want to go walking up on their stuff, man.
If I knew enough about their behavior and knew how to go about that based on observing their behavior, but I need to observe their behavior.
Yes, observation is key.
I mean,
And that's what we're lacking.
we're driving around Yellowstone and I see a grizzly off the road. I stop the car and get out of the car and get the camera.
Sure,
But
do you go running up to it with the camera to try and get a picture
no, I
5
let
feet
the other
away?
tourists do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would
mean-
be helpful for Pat if you two answered those questions you asked him. If they were fired at you, Steve, or Thomas, what would you answer those questions as being?
Which one?
The ones you asked.
Oh, okay. To me, well, I think Pat did a pretty good job. He basically said the same things I would. But in the case of the lack of roadside sightings, I would say, well, again, we only hear about maybe 1 or every 8 that's ever seen. And again, you don't hear about from the 12,000 cars that passed that spot and didn't see anything. So it's very rare. Well, why hasn't a hunter shot one? We don't know a hunter hasn't. It wouldn't surprise me someday that if the physical remains of a Sasquatch are actually laid out, it's not going to be found by some researcher in the bush. It's going to be found in some long-forgotten museum box or drawer somewhere that was handed in the early 60s and they just forgot they had it. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Or the 1920s.
Yeah, or older. I mean,
Yeah.
for everything they have in display, they got stuff in their archives that they've even forgotten where they've come from. It may be a good idea for us as researchers, instead of going out in the bush looking for this thing, going to museums and say, "Show us you're dead."
Right.
But you did.
Again, there's answers. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate because I'm
Totally.
predicting
And that's
predicting what
fair.
they
I
might
welcome that.
ask him. Yeah.
Great, but it's good that he has your information or our information.
And the next thing I was going to hit to is Pat. Speaking as a skeptical, everything has been killed on our highways. Why hasn't a Sasquatch been killed on our highways? Why hasn't a logging truck or a bus plowed one of these things in all this time? How do you explain that, Pat?
Well, we're not sure. We're actually not sure that hasn't happened.
Yeah, bingo.
And I'm not trying to go down the conspiratory road,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it's never happened. Maybe they're smart enough to avoid that situation,
Mm-hmm.
as
They're
opposed,
smarter than us.
as opposed to a groundhog. Like I have groundhogs around me; they get killed on the road all the time because they're stupid little animals.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about something much more intelligent, at least in theory, right? At least
Well,
in
people manage to
speculation.
get themselves hit by cars.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, all the time.
And I'm not sure that one's
Mm.
ever been hit. I've heard stories
Mhm.
where they have been hit, and the men in black show up or whatever, and that there may be something to that. There may be a cleanup crew on boots on the ground level. They're just putting out fires wherever they happen, and so
I really think you should avoid getting into that conspiracy government cover-up crap.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really should avoid that.
I would respond to this is
Mm.
listen, you hit a deer, you in the middle of the night, you hit a deer, you hit a bear, you hit any animal, remember you're in the forest. That animal is now wounded and it's in the tree landing.
Mhm.
You hit a Sasquatch, something you think that's a Sasquatch, you're gonna stop the vehicle? I don't think so.
mm-mm.
You're not going to get out of that. But if you hit a grizzly, you're not going to get it in the middle of the night. That
No.
grizzly's still in the bush because the thing is, you hit something doesn't necessarily you're going to kill the thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, could they have been
Right.
killed? Maybe, I don't know. But that's all you say. You don't have to. The idea here is we're not trying to push that we're right. We're trying to be fair about when we're looking at data. How would you narrate it so it makes contextual sense at the level we're at today with the information we have today that's provided?
Mm.
So.
I agree. There's no
Pat,
reason.
you may want to hit them with a question or two yourself, like,
Yep.
why does mainstream science just try to ignore this without looking into it? Why do you draw such a wall on this particular subject when on other subjects you're usually a little more open mind on it. Wouldn't it be beneficial just instead of denying the Sasquatch outright, that it's a subject worth looking into to confirm one way or the other? How do you explain that, Mr. Science Skeptic?
Yeah, no, well, I would not put it like that because again, my opponent is a very nice person. She's a very sweet girl. Mm-hmm. She's a young woman. So, and
she's not out to attack. She won't be able to attack you. But the idea is to find a way to have a narration as you're sharing the information that makes possible sense or possibility of being true. Not saying it's factual. And you would even say that. I'm not saying none of this is factual. You're
basically establishing the fact that as a researcher, you're willing to accept that her position may be right, but she at the same time should be able to accept the fact that maybe in the end your position may be right.
Right. And when she comes back with an idea that is like, well, we need some meat and potatoes, well, then you need to help us understand what you need from us. Now, she might go right to the body. That's kind of what's called a stamp to an end to an argument. Sure. Show us the body idea. But she might just say, well, we need a body. Okay, so what would we need to do to find where they are? Put it on her onus. Remember, that's what it's all about. It's this idea that, we got to provide the information, but you have to educate us on how to provide it. Mm-hmm. So how would we track them down? What should we be looking for? All those, you're trying to be a team player with her, and she's kind of got a good disposition to have that with, unlike the other one that was on there. She was just all ready to, well, what do you think about, and what do you think of this? Like, should have drove me crazy. But I mean, honestly, if you're debating her, I thought, no, we'll take her for a ride. Let's challenge her own capacities. But
yeah, I'm not trying to get into anything like heated or
no, not at all.
I also suggest you don't post this program in case they're watching it and they're taking down notes they hate you with.
Oh no, I mean it's live, so
oh great.
It's already on YouTube, Thomas.
Yeah, here's
your training video.
Yeah, she could be watching this right now. We wouldn't even know it,
Well, I mean, I think too the way Thomas was giving you the questions is like some of the people that come and challenge you, right? He was saying it, but
they're basic questions that over the last 40 years they've hit me with over and over.
Right.
I'm trying to.
Like I was even asked by one of the reporters there, well, what makes you so surely on? So you're saying that you 100% believe that they're out there? And that's a trick question, right? It's trying to trap you.
Believe. That word believe, dude. That shuts it down right there.
Well,
no, I don't believe. I don't believe.
And that's one way you can respond to it. And mine was just simply, I know there's something out there. I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The academics say there's something out there. They don't know what it is. You're not trying to pretend you know what it is. That's what we found so much online was this certainty of the narration we were hearing.
Right. And the simple answer and the simple explanation.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants an explanation.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's it's liars. Everybody's lying.
Yeah. Oh well, Raptor there on comments is saying people are doing it to make money on YouTube, and we should know that. Yeah, we do know that. There are a lot of people
we know that, Raptor.
Yeah, you bet we know that. There are a lot of people making up stories. It's like I said, the reality in previous shows, when you're dealing with an eyewitness, there's only three possibilities. One, they saw a Sasquatch. Two, they mistook someone or something for a Sasquatch. Or three, they're lying.
Yeah,
and number three, Raptor, you're absolutely right. There are people making up stories. And that's usually what pops into my head when someone comes up with this incredible story is how they shot a Sasquatch, but for some reason the body isn't available or they can't prove it. You just got to take their word for it. I'm afraid it's gotten to the point nowadays where no, we are not going to take your word for it anymore. If you're going to make a claim like that, you better be able to back it up.
Right.
Yeah. So Raptor, bro, just so you know, man, we completely understand that the Bigfoot world can be full of shit, and we try and fight that. I'll call it out, and when appropriate and when I see it. So So yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good point.
Actually, I have two things for Raptor. I've seen a couple of questions that I wanted to try to wrap back to
Okay.
that we've gotten away from. So the Neanderthal thing I was talking about, Raptor, is research from a guy named Townsend, and he's got a book on Amazon. He's in a fourth or fifth redraft of an actual scientific paper that he's been trying to get published on this study of teeth imprints on bones that have been found. So Mitchell Townsend, I think the book is called Sasquatch Solved, and that's where you'll find his information on his findings, and that's the Neanderthal stuff I was talking about. And no, I absolutely don't think they're Gigantopithecus. Actually, on my channel from a few weeks ago, I have an answer to what I think they probably are, but that's just a guess because I haven't seen one that close.
Steve, are you saying the skull behind me is lying?
Is that a skull? That is a skull.
Yeah. So as far as Giganto goes, that I think that pretty much has been ruled out because there was science was actually able to sequence part of the tooth of a Giganto, and it falls in the orangutan bush.
Closer. It's definitely a much narrower suspect than it used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the Bigfoot world gets hung up on the 1950s scientific thinking of what Giganto was, 10 foot tall, bipedal, and now science pretty much thinks that they were knuckle draggers, maybe about 20% bigger than a gorilla.
What's wrong with the 1950s?
Yeah, back off on that, Mister. I'm a 50 boy.
I'm just saying.
Young punk, you young whippersnappers, you. What generation are you? Generation R or T or whatever they are?
Just saying. You know, Giganto likely was not a bipedal, 10 foot tall, you know, which would fit sort of the Bigfoot model, right? Looks good. It's like, this looks good. Probably not. Like, so.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
So for the last question Raptor put up there, if he's talking about the case, I think he was talking about the DNA on that came back as a bear. The DNA out of the Ketchum study matched a bear best. Dr. Hart has a lot of stuff on that on his blog.
I was wondering if he was talking about that one too, because if there's another one, I don't know about it.
Yeah, but he harvested a bear out of season, probably, which was a good reason that he didn't really want to come forward with it. Otherwise, it was a Sasquatch and the DNA was human, so it was murder, which is another good reason not to come forward with it.
I think he's talking about Justin Samaha.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I think that was looked into, and I'm convinced that Justin Samaha was going for his 15 minutes.
That's a tough one.
That's my opinion, but yeah.
That's a tough one. Look, full disclosure, I know Justin. So, like, that guy went through a lot, man.
A chunk of meat was a bear.
Somebody burnt down his house. No, I'm not kidding you. Yeah.
Say that again?
Somebody burnt down his house.
You're kidding.
No. And yeah, he was on, $10 million Bigfoot bounty on TV. And dude, that doesn't pay shit. It pays about what you would be making in the trades industry on a daily basis. And I know that too, because I've been in TV. But, so I know Justin. I had a relationship with him at one point. I haven't talked to him in a while. he's doing something different now. He's abandoned the Bigfoot world. He's gotten the fuck away from the Bigfoot world. He's doing his own thing. But somebody burnt down his house, and the guy's gone.
I'm sad to hear that. I don't care what it is.
He went through a lot of shit, man.
Yeah, that's just wrong.
And I spent
Lockbeard there just asked, so do you guys reject the Ketchum DNA study entirely? I'm just speaking from my own opinion.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm just speaking my own opinion here, Lockbeard. I reject everything.
No, yeah. And
that came out of Ketchum's.
Justin's experience has nothing to do with the Ketchum study.
No. But, the question is, do I reject the DNA study entirely? Yes.
And that's what Justin's sample
was part of that.
Again, that's a very long, complicated story.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it went to Brian Sykes, and then there was that TV show with Brian Sykes, and it was determined to be bear, and from the flesh thing that Justin had, where they had went back out and retrieved something like later, way after the fact. After they threw the juvenile into bushes and just ran away. That's a complicated thing. That's not. There's no like I could talk about that for an hour because I know Justin, and I spent a lot of time talking to him. About this. So.
But basically, it came back in the end. It came back. Take my word for it.
Yeah,
that's all they had. Yeah.
Yeah, the pound of flesh, which was retrieved way after the fact, after heavy snowfall, and they found this pound of flesh, and Brian Sykes said it turned out to be there, and that's just, man, that's a crazy, complicated story,
It was one of the samples that Ketchum tried to do the chromosome 11 sequencing on.
Yes.
And the best match for that sample from chromosome 11 is bear.
Yeah. It would appear,
which is the best match. It's the best match Dr. Hart found. It's the best match I found following the same process to match what's in the database.
It would appear that what he went back and retrieved was a chunk of flesh from a bear.
Yeah.
I will agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
I don't know enough to know the rest of it.
That does not mean that what happened before, because this was after the fact. This wasn't in real time. This was after the fact. They had to come back to look for the juvenile that Justin shot. And I can't explain that. I don't know why, they ended up looking for something that they had left behind and came up with a chunk of bear flesh. I have no explanation for that. All I know is that, I've talked to Justin quite a bit, and I've heard his story over and over and over again. And, it never changes. He shot 2 Sasquatch that day. That's what he claims.
So why can't we find them?
Well, so what happened was, Justin reached out. So Justin was freaked out. He didn't know what to do. And his best effort to reach out to anybody was on a taxidermist forum. And he put out there, hey, has anybody ever seen anything, out in the woods that is, that looks like a Bigfoot? And guess who responded to that? Was Ken Walker. So Ken Walker got involved and started talking to Justin, like, what are you talking about? And there's back and forth. And then he told him, he said, man, I think I fucking killed a Bigfoot. And so Ken Walker got Derek Randles involved. and eventually even Meldrum went out there and everything. But Derek Randles came out to the to the kill site, and he marched up and down the hillside, the down to the valleys, to the creeks. He looked everywhere for a body. And so at this point, Bigfooters were involved. And eventually Meldrum was involved. And so all that happened, all that got played out. And yeah, I mean, to this day, I would tell Justin, why didn't you just pick that damn thing up and throw it in the back of the truck and drive it into town, man? But they were just so, the best I can come up with is they were so freaked out by what had just happened that they just wanted to get the hell out of there and have nothing to do with these things that they never knew existed. That Justin just killed one,
Is this the one I'm just trying to get my brain around? Is this the one that came out a few years back? Like how long ago was this incident?
Oh, this is like
8-10 years ago now.
Like 8 to 10 years ago. It was like 2007, 2008, maybe. So maybe
if this is the Justin that I think you're talking about, I don't buy his story at all. I'm sorry. I watched his body language on the interviews and the shows that he's been on when he's talked about this, and he's not factually telling the true stuff. It's all he's fabricating it, but he believes it.
I don't know, man. I didn't pick that up, Liam. I
want to make sure that's why I asked you the first question. The first question was, I want to make sure I'm talking about the same Justin, because for some reason in Bigfoot researchers, there's way too many Justins out here.
All right, so Justin Smeha in the Sierra Nevadas, they were up on a forest road, looking for bear, looking for bear to kill. And him and his buddy, I can't remember his buddy's name, but him and his buddy were driving up this forest road high in the Sierras, and they saw something pop out of the wood line that looked like it didn't belong there.
Okay, what's this? How do you spell this guy's last name? Sorry, Pat.
Smeha, so SMJIA.
SM what?
JIA, I believe. Smeha. Yeah.
SMEJ.
IA?
Something A.
Yeah.
And while Leon's looking this up, Lockbeard, the best thing I can say about Ketchum is there might be something in that study that needs to be followed up, but I think she missed the best evidence that she had in the study. The longer answer to that is I did 3 videos on that on my channel. I did a long video in 3 parts on Sasquatch and DNA. And it's largely going to reflect what you would find in Dr. Hart's book, studying the Ketchum study.
Yeah,
agreed. I reject that too.
That's the same guy I'm talking about. I don't buy anything he's saying. Not at all. His microexpression, body, his body, his visuals.
Just to answer that guy's question that just popped up. No, I do not put much credence into anything Melba Ketchum did, because
that's been thoroughly debunked.
To me that was just a colossal waste of time. I predicted at the time the only thing that's going to come out of that is she's going to be a guest on Coast to Coast Radio once or twice a year with George Norrie, and that's about it.
Yep.
And I've been proven right.
Yeah. I don't know, Leon.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to disagree.
We're not saying that Meldrum was in on a kill. I believe Pat is saying that Meldrum came out to try to look for the body
or evidence. Yeah, like
for any evidence that had happened. And
that's true.
Was Sasquatch? He was looking for evidence of Sasquatch. One was already dead. That's a good place to look.
Yeah. And another question is, what did he use as a rifle?
He had it wasn't a 30-06. It was a 20 odd 6 or 25
Hey,
odd 6.
Gary.
And did he? Hey Gary. Look at there's. If you want one day, what I'll do is I'll go through one of his videos with you, and I'll show you why he's being deceptive.
That's fine. I'm willing to do that with you, Leon. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Justin. We had a intimate, relationship for a minute.
For a minute.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I'm just saying, like, as far as that whole thing went, and
there's no way what he's talking about is true at all.
man, I put him to the test. I tried to trick him up a couple times, and Leon, and he passed the test, man.
Well, do you do this professionally? No,
I don't. But
I'm dealing with psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists. Yeah, they can come across pretty good as being pretty solid, but they're absolutely lying.
Yeah, Paul Freeman, in my opinion, was lying to me for 20 years. I mean,
I do have life experience, man. Like,
well, that's fine. I have life experience in a lot of things, but it doesn't mean I'm educated to the level I would need to know about certain things. And that's why I go and ask other people who are more educated about it, like especially with Steve and Thomas.
I hear you, dude. But my point would be this: I have enough life experience where I've been able to predict ahead of time, removing myself from extremely dangerous situations before they ever happen.
Right.
So I'm a pretty good judge. I'm a poker player. I win when I play poker. I win. I can size you up. I know what I can guess what your cards are. I'm good at that kind of shit. So because I don't have like academic credentials to back that up, I have life experience to back that up.
But have you ever played cards with a sociopath before?
Perhaps.
Okay, well, how would you know it?
I wouldn't know it because they never presented their sociopathic behaviors.
Well,
If he has, he doesn't know it.
You can't recognize it on them. That's how they're sociopathic, narcissistic.
Well, I'll tell you this, Leon. I pulled a fucking gun on a sociopath before and put it up against his head.
Yeah.
So I've dealt with sociopaths, bro.
Well, no, you've dealt with some types of sociopaths, but there's a whole basket full of different types out there, and so
they're all dangerous. If they are.
Well, yeah, especially if they can fool the best of us.
Yeah. Well, somebody burnt down Justin's house. I mean, I don't think he's a sociopath. I mean,
I'm not saying anything about that. I don't know nothing about that. I've heard the story about that. All I can tell you is what I watched him when that all came out, and I followed that, and I went through every video I could find about the whole thing, and I don't find any honesty, and I don't find that he's solid with what I'm seeing. So watch him and turn the volume off.
Okay, I mean, look, I'll try and be more objective about that. It's just, like I do have a relationship with the guy. I haven't talked to him in a while, but
well, I'm sure. I mean, that's as soon as it becomes a relationship, then it's now personalized. It's not subjective, or it's subjective now. It's not objective because you have a personal relationship.
Well, it's always been subjective because the first thing I ever said when I heard his story was, "Why the hell didn't you just pick that thing up, throw it in the truck, take it somewhere?" Like,
well, but that's objective.
See,
you're objective. You're not bought into the Kool-Aid yet because you're doing exactly the right thing. Cut the bloody finger off. How come there's not a big blood splatter there? Because if he was hunting for bear, is that what he was hunting for? What was he?
He had blood all over his shoes. I mean,
so if he's got blood all over his shoes, that means there's tons of blood in the area. And if he's going after bear, not necessarily now, but when these other guys, when Meldrum and them are there, you're going to see that stuff, even if it's been there for a while. You should be able to track or see that stuff in the ground. It's not like a big thing when you come across a bear kill. You can follow it. You can.
You're right. It would be interesting to talk to Randalls because Derek Randalls was I think like the first like real Bigfooter to show up on the scene.
But even that was 2 weeks after the fact.
I
Well,
probably
the temperature was okay, and it didn't rain out very much at all like that. You just get a bloody blue light up there, you spray the whole area down, and you turn that light on, and you're going to still find a massive amount of blood sitting where this thing was supposed to be taken down.
true, but it's the High Sierras, and so we're talking like 8,000 elevation. So what happened was I think it was like a day or two later. There was a massive, snow cap that hit that area. And so I like.
Well, that's even better because, again, the snow will protect the evidence on the ground.
Right.
Yeah. Again, Leon, I think the thing that Pat is getting at, that talking to the guy, is the same experience I had with the late Paul Freeman.
Right.
When he had his first encounter in 1982. I thought he was telling me the truth. I really did. I thought this man is not making this up. But I investigated. I asked questions. I learned things. I went and talked to people that Freeman was associated with in his job as a watershed ranger. And I learned through that, and of course, following up on other experience, which Pat has not, because this fellow who claimed to have shot a Sasquatch hasn't claimed other encounters in the following months, unlike the late Paul Freeman did.
That's true.
Yeah. And I concluded that I defended him a lot longer than I should have, because he was an absolute excellent example of what I refer to as Ivan Mark syndrome. And there's no doubt in my mind. So I thought, well, maybe his first encounter was true, and he just liked being in the limelight, and he started making stuff up after that. And even Meldrum, even today, still thinks some of Freeman's tracks may have been authentic.
Yeah.
But to me, I think he was a classic example of Ivan Mark syndrome. And I learned that, and I defended him much longer, because Paul Freeman as a human being, I mean, the world were filled with Paul Freemans, the world would be a better place. But for some reason on this subject, he was blowing it out both ends. He was making it up. I'm totally convinced of that. It was Ivan Mark syndrome, but you learned that through follow up and stuff. This Pat is at a disadvantage here, because he had his original talk with the so-called witness, but there was nothing to follow up on, other than the DNA analysis of the blood and stuff that basically came out there.
Right. Again, he shot 2 Sasquatches. Is this what this guy's claiming?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's killed 2 Sasquatches, or just shot 2 Sasquatches?
Killed.
Where are the bodies?
Bingo.
Where would they go? 500 to 600, maybe 800-pound bodies. Where have they gone to? There'd be lots of stuff on the ground showing lots of evidence for that, if a person knows what he's looking for. And you don't even have to be that highly qualified to do it. If you're just a general hunter, you would see that even 3 weeks, sometimes a month away. When you go and look at an old deer carcass or an old area where a deer has been shot, you can see the deer hair still on the site. And you can tell by how the deer hair is sitting on the site that something's either killed it or something's either shot it.
And that's where the best value you could get is probably to try to talk to Derek Randalls.
Derek would have been very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, he's a thorough guy.
I think Meldrum was very thorough,
Yeah, but that's the point. If both of those two would have been very thorough, and the guy's claimed he's killed 2 Sasquatches that are going to be between, say, 6 to 8 feet tall, anywhere between maybe 400 to 600 pounds.
No, one was an adult, one
was
a juvenile.
Yeah.
Okay,
and he didn't kill. He never claimed to kill 2. He shot 1 and killed the juvenile. So the juvenile.
I thought he had killed 2.
That's why I was asking those questions very specifically.
He didn't. I mean, he. So what happened? What happened was, he shot the adult twice, and it ran off into the wood line. He never saw it again. And the 2 juveniles came out of the wood line looking for it, and they were intermingling at this point. Him and his buddy and the 2 juveniles were all together, kind of looking for it, and they're just like, bizarre situation. Didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, Justin said it looked like a 10-year-old kid with a 5-gallon bucket on their head.
Yeah, okay. So what he's suggesting to you is he shot at an adult. The adult ran into the forest. 2 juveniles came out. Young ones came out. That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
And he put a bullet in one of them and killed one of the young ones.
Eventually he killed one of the juveniles.
And my motivation for doing that, he says to Pat, is what? They're not a threat. It's a mercy killing because I killed maybe its mom.
No.
What's the reason for shooting a kid?
This damn thing doesn't belong here.
See, that does not add up. It
does to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
If you know Justin, it does. It's like, he's like, these things don't belong here. I don't know what these things are. I'm just going to
kill him. That's not where
if there were 2 of them, why not kill both of them then? They both don't belong.
Well, and they go after them.
No, he shot the one in the throat, and it was like it fell to the ground, grasping his throat, and then he was like, he immediately, and he'll say this, he's like, he immediately knew he fucked up. He shouldn't have done that, and his buddy told him the whole time, "Don't you kill it! Don't you kill it! Don't you kill it!" You know. And so,
by the way, Pat, has anyone talked to the buddy?
Yes, he's been interviewed.
Mm-hmm. And he backs up this claim.
He backs it up 100%.
So he's not identified.
Yes, he is. At this point, he has been identified. I just can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
This has been a long time ago. Yeah, I wish Ernie was here because he could describe this much better. So Justin shoots the one in the throat. It grabs its throat, and he's watching this thing die, and he feels bad instantly. And so
he does what?
And the other one fucking bolts.
Okay, no. What does Justin do? He feels badly. Then what? What does he do?
So his buddy comes running up because he heard the shot. Because his buddy was down in the ravine looking for the other one, you know. He says, "Man, I fucking told you not to shoot that thing." And they both freak out. They both just look at each other and go, "Oh man, we just fired 2 shots or 3 shots, actually." And you know, wildlife management might be in the area. And so they sorted it out between themselves right then and there, real quick, I would imagine. Like, oh shit, you know, we just fired 3 shots. This thing's dead. We got to get the fuck out of here now. And so they grabbed it and fucking just tossed it in some bush and went to their truck and bolted out. That's what happened.
What a shame. If it was true, if they put it in the back of the pickup truck, this mystery would be over.
I agree. And that's the first thing I said, Thomas.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I said when I heard the story. I was like, well, why didn't the guy just pick it up and put it in the truck?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then I heard the story over and over and over again. And I'm like, I get that. I get that a human being would react that way. You know, here they are dealing with these things that they never knew existed.
But what you're not seeing is what I'm trained to see, and that's not how the human being would respond to a situation like that.
I think they would.
Well, I'm sorry, Pat, but that's not how you would actually respond. You're hearing the narrative. Wait. Help me. Let me help you a bit here. You're hearing a narrative of a guy claiming that he's seen a Sasquatch, an adult one, shot at it twice, was it?
Yeah, shot twice.
It ran into the bush. Then he watched 2 other little ones come out. Mm-hmm. For some reason, in his mind, he bared down on the other one, shot it in the throat. This is what he's suggesting to you. Now, remember, as you're hearing the narrative that he's sharing to you, it's going through your brain filter where you're processing it. Could this be possible for me to hear? Would I do the same thing from this guy's scenario? And this guy, from my perspective, somebody who deals with people's in their brain and how the brain works and processes things, this is not how it would be articulated.
But that's okay. That's not exactly what happened. The way it went down was that Justin got out of the truck. He squared up on the big one, and he shot at it
Because
at least once.
because
Because well, he paused for a minute because his buddy was yelling in his ear, "Don't shoot it! Don't shoot it!" And he thought through. He thought through. He was like, "Are they shooting a movie up here?" You know. Like he went through the thought process, and he says all of this. It's documented. That
I know it's documented because I've watched all of his stuff.
So he went through the thought processes like, is there a movie being shot around here? And then he just came to the decision of like, no, that's not the case, and this thing doesn't belong here. And he's a bumpkin hunter guy. Like he's willing to just kill stuff. He's killed 300 deer his entire career, you know? So he said, fuck it, I'm going to shoot it. And his buddy's screaming in his ear, don't shoot it, don't shoot it. And he fucking shot at it. He hit it and it ran off. And it went on all fours. And then he took another shot and hit it again. And it just kept going. And then the other two come out. And then here's what happened is that they went up into the area where it was, and the other two were just there with them. And because they were small, they were like 3 feet tall. It wasn't a threat, but they were kind of weirded out by it. Like, what the hell are these things? You know, that's what happened. Like, it wasn't like I shot it and then I shot the other one. Like it was this process.
No, I know. And that's the part I'm talking about. It's the process. The process that, listen, by the way, I want to thank you for being on the hot seat, Pat. This is what it would need to be on the hot seat. You're doing pretty good, buddy. So it's the setup for you. That's the reason why I'm doing this for you.
Sure.
But honestly, that's why I'm actually doing it. I knew it would be a good one to get you all on the defense, and you're all in there, and you're duking it out with Leon. You know, it's practical.
No, I mean,
how do you explain that, Pat?
I can't.
But I tell you that's the thing is the processing in which he's giving us a narrative about how this transpired and why it transpired and what he was thinking and all that kind of stuff. That is not the correct process that the brain would go through. But because you heard his narrative, it sounds plausible to you. And so that's why you're in a way vulnerable to listen and buy into that narrative. That is not how that would unfold. You don't go and shoot something twice and then go and shoot something that's innocent. And he hasn't what he hasn't told you is his motivation.
Yes, no, he did.
No, wait.
He did
a narrative of why he did it, but he hasn't told you his emotional narration for why he did it.
He did. He said this fucking thing doesn't belong here. It's like
the thing that bugs me about that is, even though I agree with Leon that it's odd the way he reacted when he shot these things. What's really odd is he didn't bring it back. And if his reasoning was not bringing it back because he could be in trouble, then why did he tell anybody about it at all?
Because, I mean, what do people do when they have a Bigfoot experience? They feel compelled to tell somebody. And that's why he went, and this is documented. You can check with Ken Walker.
Yeah.
Like Ken's a reputable guy. And Ken will tell you that he found Justin on that taxidermist website where Justin reached out and said, hey, has anybody ever, I'm paraphrasing, has anybody ever come across something, weird, like a Bigfoot kind of thing in the woods? And Ken Walker was the one that saw that post on the taxidermist site. So this is all documented.
Okay, so was Justin ever on or talked about Sasquatch or Bigfoot prior to this event?
Never.
Are you sure about that?
Yes. Okay. I mean, no one has ever presented any kind of evidence that Justin had anything to do with the Bigfoot world before this happened to him. So I confidently say, nope, never.
Okay.
So I mean, if anybody wants to be a super sleuth and try and dig that out somewhere, go for it. I'm wide open to, oh, well, he did,
Yeah.
fine.
And the unfortunate thing is his decision not to bring the body in has put him in this position he's in today. Whereas if he had brought it in, he might have gone through a bit of hell with some young prosecutor trying to make an issue of it. But the point is, Justin Schmurd now would be right up there with Louis Leakey as having to solve the greatest mystery in the North American continent. And he's basically blew it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree 100%.
Mhm.
He blew it, and I understand why he blew it. He was scared to fucking death in that moment. And he admits it to this day. He says, I shouldn't have shot the thing. My buddy was telling me, don't shoot it, don't shoot it. Even the
I disagree. He should have. I don't mind him shooting the thing, is what it is. He should have brought it back.
Yeah, but it was instant regret. It was like,
I gotta admit, as I'm coming through this story again, because I've heard this a few times, I'm coming back to where I normally come back to, which is where Leon is. I'm not sure it even really happened.
I don't think Justin has the fucking capability to make this story up. And I'll do, Justin, if you're watching, bro, I love you. Like, I like, you're an intelligent guy, but Justin does not have the intelligence to make this kind of complex story up. He just doesn't.
Well, see, that's the problem that I keep seeing in his body language. It's not that he can't make it up. It's not that he's trying to make it up. The problem is he's buying into a narrative he's hearing in his head about what he perceives has happened, and he buys it to be true. But it doesn't mean it's factual. And that's when when you're dealing with a witness or witnesses that are sharing stories, if they actually believe it to be true, everything they're going to tell you is going to come out as in a tone that sounds that it's solid. But it doesn't mean it's factual. Happens all the time. Happens to everybody actually all the time, but not at a level of that I see that's on him. I mean,
again, there's a second witness that did not want to be identified, and then eventually, through somehow through internet super sleuthing, somebody was able to identify the guy, so he had to eventually come forward.
Okay, so again, it goes back to the bodies again, Pat. The bottom line is, if there's a dead carcass out there somewhere, even if it's been there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or when's the next time somebody showed up on site?
I don't know that. I don't know those exact details. Again, you'd have to ask Derek Randall. So this is where I pass it off to Derek.
Yeah, if I am remembering the story right from when I was looking into this related to the sample being submitted to Ketchum, it was at least 2 weeks before Randall's was back out there.
Okay, so if that's 2 weeks, you are going to be easily able to find bloody remains. I'm sorry, especially because he knows where he put it in the brush.
Roughly.
Even roughly.
Again, they went.
All they have to do is find it and do a 100-foot perimeter search.
Okay, so we had
grabs it and pulls it through the bush.
There was a huge snow dump in elevation.
Yeah,
so they
protected is what
they went back up there to try and find it,
right?
And in that snow dump. So that changes everything.
Well, there are two interesting things about this. One, follow-up investigation failed to find any evidence whatsoever that this had happened.
Correct.
The DNA analysis pointed to another target.
Correct.
But what's interesting about the Justin case is he has someone who was with him and that's backing him up. That's interesting. So I'm wondering why a second witness would be going along with something he knows is not true.
If there's a game afoot, that's exactly why a second witness would be. Yeah.
And he tried to remain anonymous. He even did an interview anonymously, like blacked out, so you couldn't see his face, like in shadow. And he told his side of the story. Eventually his name came out. Somebody was able to figure out who he was. So I'm not trying I'm not encouraging anybody to go harass that dude, because honestly, man, he he doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
The basic disappointing thing about this whole thing, it could have solved the mystery then and there. Instead, we just got another Sasquatch story.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And even if it's 100% false, even if it's 100% made up, even though Justin made no money off that, like no money. I mean, it's just to me, it's just a sad thing that happened. Because I mean, Justin is not in the Bigfoot world. You don't see him in the Bigfoot world. I'd have I couldn't convince him to come on here. I couldn't. He wouldn't. He'd be like, "No, I'm not doing it, dude." Fuck
well,
you.
after what he's been through, I wouldn't blame him for never getting involved in the Bigfoot world again.
Somebody burned down his house.
Mm-hmm.
His house burnt down. He actually got messed with by wildlife officials. You know, like DNR types.
By the way, was it when he went out there that day? Was it bear season?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And they actually had tags for one side of the road, but not the other.
See, that's the thing. You're talking a caliber when you're taking down a bear. And that caliber is going to blow a hole in that thing. And
he had something the almost equivalent of a 30-06.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. If it's equivalent to a 30-06, you're talking a pretty big hole, or you're talking maybe a smaller exit wound hole, but the guts going through that and the pressure from that bullet hitting that bear, and more likely a mushroom shell is going to be involved with that, where it's displacing out inside the guts as it's shooting out of the skin on the other side of where the shell goes in, or the bullet goes in. The behind that is going to be just a splatter. And if it's only 2 weeks after that, from what I've walked into the Bigfoot community, people are not qualified to make these claims if they're not professionally trained and knowing how to identify situations like that. There's just way too much. I mean, if I heard right now that we had somebody who killed a Sasquatch here and it was 6 weeks ago, I'm pretty sure I can find that bloody whatever's left over there on the ground. Well, and I should be able to find the visual of that easily on the ground.
Again, I would have to defer to Derek Randles because he was.
That's right.
He was you. He was you.
Yeah, and let me take you down one further step from that, Leon. Let's just say more of them came in and removed the body in the intervening 6 weeks.
That's what the people who would believe the story would come out as the reason why nothing was found. The wounded adult came back and took it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But where I want to continue with that is, I think you would still be able to find where that body had been.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the bear sample that came in, or where's the skin sample with the hair that showed up to be bear in the DNA study? Because
they went back. Him and his buddy went back before Derek Randles got involved. So they went back, I want to say a few days later, roughly. But in that time, a winter storm had passed through at elevation and dumped that snow, right? And so they had to go back, dealing with that snow load.
That was what was 2 weeks later. Randall's was more like a month later.
Right. Okay. So whatever the timing was, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact timing. So it may have been, like Steve said, 2 weeks later. He's probably right. He probably files away that information better than I do.
Probably.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, after all, he did work on the F-22. So I didn't. But yeah, I mean, so whatever that timing was, before Randles was involved, they went back, him and his buddy, just those two, and went back to what they thought was the spot, and all they found was this chunk of flesh, and that's what Justin took from the site, thinking that was it. Well, I think they had a dog with them too, so there was a dog involved. The dog had tracked onto the chunk of flesh. They I mean, just snow load everywhere. They didn't know where the fuck they'd fucking left this thing, So the dog tracked onto a chunk of flesh, and that's what they retrieved, and it turned out to be bear. I have no
And
explanation for that.
And did not the blood on the boots also turn out to be bear?
I think so.
Mhm.
Yes, I think. But again, that was to Brian Sykes, and God bless his soul. We can't I don't want to speak ill of the man. He also thought there was some weird polar bear thing going on, with the Himalayas that has been completely debunked since then. Like some ancient connection to a polar bear.
Yeah. And if Ketchum had any blood from that sample, it was not handled as a separate sample like it should have been.
Yep.
Correct. And so, yeah, Justin had the bloody boots. He had the pound of flesh, and he vested a lot of his own emotional interest into that. And I totally get that from his point of view. Like, this fucking shit happened to me, man. It was traumatic. It was crazy. I ended up killing a little 3 foot tall, kid looking thing. It's traumatic, Sure, I get that. I don't think that's beyond our scope of human beings. Like there's nothing inherently.
And at this point, I'm not sure it matters. I'm not sure it matters that much anyway. There's nothing we're going to recover from this story.
It'll never be solved.
Yeah.
And it's easy for us here in our talking about it way after the fact with hindsight to say he should have done this, he should have done that. But
it'll never be solved.
Yeah, but the simple truth is he should have done this. I mean, again, it was a great if true, it was a great opportunity to solve a great mystery instead of hoping it happens another Sasquatch tale.
Yeah,
I agree.
Water under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is the whole reason why Derek Reynolds got involved, because once he caught wind of it through, I guess, Ken.
What was Derek Randall's conclusion? Did he come around?
Yeah, he went out there and he searched up and down, all around. I mean, the guy went on a remote hike, basically. A mile down, a mile back, a mile around, whatever. Man, he looked all over for evidence.
Yeah, because if you go on the physical evidence that was retrieved, we have to conclude that Justin shot a bear. And for reasons of his own, came up with this bizarre story. That's what the evidence points at. But I know what you're saying, Pat. Talking to the man, you're convinced that there's something to it, but just by the way you were talking to him. But I have interviewed so many people in the last 43 years that sound absolutely convincing. The point is that it can't be backed up, and that is the case with this.
I agree.
Yeah,
it can't. At this point, there's zero chance of any kind of go out there and get evidence of it. That's
and what evidence was recovered and examined after the fact pointed to bear.
That's true. But again, that's what him and his buddy went back, and there was snow load, and they had a dog, and the dog tracked on that piece.
Wait. You don't know the dog's a tracking dog. You know a dog is on site. I bet you the dog's not a tracking dog. Honestly, if there was a snow load on there and that snow load's on there for 6 weeks, all the evidence is protected, including where it's been thrown in the brush.
It's literally in nature's cold storage.
That's right. And so once that snow load's gone, if he threw something in the brush, what you're going to find is bones or skin particles or not even skin particles, chunks of skin hanging in the brush in the springtime when that thaws out. Other animals might come out and take pieces of it and stuff like that, but you're going to be able to find it. If you have a tracking dog that has been trained in scent, it'll find that remains, that flesh. And there's just way too much holes here in this guy's story. I remember watching him share his story in front of the tree or the incident in the environment where it happened to be at, and he showed where he shot the thing was at, and he showed all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, everything he's saying to me is especially his eye motions and stuff like that, he's developing it as he's saying it. Well, I'll change that a bit. He's practiced it to such a degree that he believes what he's saying. So when he shares it, it seems valid or viable that it could be factually true. But it's the stuff you're not, when you're looking at listening to people's stories and stuff, it's what they should be saying. If you're not trained in knowing what they should be saying and what they're presenting, that's not showing up. That should be there when a person has an incident like this. If he's so overwhelmed by this, like you're saying, you explained his psychological state. Now, I know you're not him, Pat. I know you're not him, okay? So it's not fair for you to sit here, for me to hammer at you, but you wanted to be in the hot seat, so I'm just giving you a practicum on that for tomorrow. So you can be like, holy shit, I got to do that last night. I can handle this easily tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, and that's the thing is I'm not seeing what the narrative of what he said to you is not appearing in his stories when I'm watching him tell his stories on all the videos I've watched him share this story with. It's not there. It's not present there. It's like you should be seeing things like I seen this thing. See how my eyebrows just went up there? Watch this again. I seen this thing. See tension? That's tension right there.
Yeah.
See how my eyebrows went up there? I seen this thing.
Yeah, you make a move.
Now he's talking about something that doesn't belong there, to the point where I'll put a bullet in it. There should be tension. These tension right here. These tension things right here. I should have creases in through here too as well. My eyebrows go up because I don't know what I'm looking at.
I would have to go back and watch that interview, and
that's why I'm saying that to you. Is
unfortunately, Leon, I don't think we can find the original interview that he did with Rose Sahibi.
Well, there's a few others out there too that are in documentaries.
There are,
yeah.
but not. I mean, the most intensive one, the most real, like the fresh on your mind kind of thing, was with Roe, and Roe took that down off YouTube.
Why? Do you know?
I think because he wanted, like he realized he had gold there, maybe like he could make a documentary out of it somehow. Like I don't know. He took it off YouTube, and I don't know if anybody had captured that and like was able to. I don't know if that exists anymore. Without going straight to Roe and saying, "Hey, I want to see that fucking interview, bro." And so then you get to really see like that. Then you could tell me his expressions, and like I don't know. We would almost have to go through that methodically, which I'd be willing to do.
Well, if you ever reach out to him again, say, "Could you just share your account with me and film it for me?" And then I'll go through it. I'll go through it systematically for you.
Yeah, Roe doesn't like me.
No, not him, but Justin.
Man, to be honest with you, Leon, just like straight up honesty, I do not want to ask Justin to come back into the Bigfoot world.
No, well, again, I'm not saying that. I'm suggesting to you that you can say to him, "Listen, this is not going out to anyone," but film him, and then show me the film of it. Because the bottom line is, if he's seen it, when traumatic things happen to people, they have to share it. I don't care how tough they might get burned by the community. Doesn't matter whatever the topic happens to be. People get burned by the church. They get burned by a belief system that they bought into at one point.
Right.
They need. There's a gallop that starts inside that. I got to let this go, and this is killing me if I don't let it go. And you provide an environment and a space where they can trust you with that whole thing. But I don't. Again, I'm not seeing. It's like again when Pilates did that. We did that show on Pilates.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that family that said they lost their child and something happened to them and they came in and I just thought it wasn't what I was. Mom was crying about the whole thing, but it's not about her crying. It's about what type of crying is she doing. If you had a son that just disappeared and he was your favorite, your only son, you'd be not crying. And that's right after the event. The police are there. She's sitting on the quad. She's going like this. That's called hidance because you let people see, and you see, and they'll move their hand, and they'll show a tear come down here. And the visual person at home is going to think, "Man, it's terrible that what's happened to her," because you put it through your own filter of empathy and compassion towards a mom who's lost her son. But what you're not seeing what you should be seeing is her going like this, and she would be sobbing. She's on the quad. The police are investigating, right on time. That's happening presently. The kid's just been gone. He's been missing for a while. The police have arrived. She's not showing what you would see for great remorse and sorrow. And then you listen to the husband who does what's called distancing language. Little buddy. You don't go to little buddy when your son's missing. You go to the name you named him during the birth, because that's when you bonded with him immediately. You don't do a distraction or a pushing away terminology when you're describing something like that. Like, and I would be, the other thing, I didn't notice any of this in that Pilates documentary either. The despotism of the family of going after the cops to say, get your fucking shit together and go find my fucking son. And what I said to you before is, when they did the search because they heard the narrative of the parents of where this happened, but they had to drive out quite a few miles to get phone reception. That's more than likely where they should have searched.
I agree. And you know what, Leon, I never even considered that until you brought it up. And so I looked into it. Turns out, Leon, public sentiment is just what you're saying. Public sentiment was, hey, police, like, look into the parents. Like, that's what happened in that case. And
her best friend
was never brought up, But,
when her best friend's in the garage, or wherever that background was, it looked like it was a garage. They were living in a garage. Yeah. And they said, well, they asked her best friend a question, and she turned and she says, yeah, it's really sad. And then she went like this, and she did this thing right, over on the side of her mouth, and it's Duper's delight. She smiled.
Yeah, I know.
I got
that
away.
Was awkward. It was very
weird. When they asked the grandfather, what do you think happened to little Billy or whatever his name was there? That laugh he does is just not a normal laugh. I know nervous laugh when you lose somebody. Like at a funeral, sometimes people will laugh. Mm-hmm. That's not what you're seeing there. You're talking about we got away with something here. That type of laugh. I just thought that I should be phoning the police sheriff's office. But again, they don't have the evidence.
Very bizarre. Yeah.
But they should. I'll bet you any money down the road, somebody will run into those remains, and it'll be where they actually made the cell phone.
Yeah,
that's where I would look for the cell phone call, find ping that, mm-hmm. and then look in that area. That's more likely. But it's so many years now. I don't know if the remains would be easy to find. Yeah. 6 years or something. But
I agree.
Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I could, I'll reach out to Justin. I doubt he would. I'm
not asking you to do that, Pat.
But I mean, I would like to have that discussion with him, just one-on-one again. But he's told that story so many times, and he doesn't have anything to do with the Bigfoot world. He's got his own thing going on, and fuck the Bigfoot world. It's like.
So Pat, I just put a link into private chat. Would you share that for Strangeland? It's Dr. Hart's blog where he talks about Ketchum's DNA study and analyzing that, and that might help you understand if you're really interested in understanding some of the things that are wrong with Dr. Ketchum's study.
Yep.
Yes, I will do that right now.
Are we going 3 hours? Is that what's happening here?
No, we're about to wrap up. Kim Song.
Good. Seems to me there's a bit of a war going on in the comment section between people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just noticing that as well.
No, we'll wrap up. Interesting discussion. I mean,
we're dysfunctional on all levels, Thomas.
Yeah, totally.
But for tomorrow, Pat, great example on how you were put on the hot seat there. Just be ready tomorrow when you go on to make sure the narrative isn't they're against, you're for. Try to get it to us. Why the hell can we not just look into the possibility and have an open mind on either it does exist or it doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the key to your debate tomorrow.
Okay? Yeah, that's
Don't give them the impression that you're one of these. You're not a religious leader pushing a faith. Sasquatch is real, and I'm here to convince everybody it is. And they shouldn't be in the position it doesn't exist, and we're going to convince you that it's not there. You know, it should be something's happening. It should be looked into.
And to be honest with you, Thomas, I think it's already set up in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like not this like extreme opposing thing.
Mm-hmm.
She seems curious about the Sasquatch phenomenon, and I'm not going to come representing cherished belief.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Because if they come out and say there's a lot of weirdness in the Sasquatch field, Tom, yeah, you're right. There is.
Absolutely. Of course I'll
there
admit
is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and from that standpoint, if she actually has, these are the things you need to do to get our interest.
Okay. Yeah.
That's very useful, helpful information.
You know what? I'll lay that out just like you said. I'll say, what do you need? But you know, besides dragging a body into your office, you know, like
let's say we're going to do this the modern way, where we can find them, we can get pictures, we can get DNA that is verifiably from the subjects. Species have been identified by that over the last couple of decades. It's entirely valid.
Yes.
What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fair enough.
And if one is hit on that Trans-Canada Highway and then we actually have a body, well, there you go, Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. That would be the ultimate ending.
Yeah. It would.
Mm-hmm.
The debate is on the Modern Debate channel. There will be a link to it in the subject.
No. Agreed. No. Agreed to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Okay.
Yeah. The link is in the description on the on this YouTube channel right now. It's linked down below. Yeah.
And it'll be about 6 p.m. East or noon East Coast time and about 9 in the morning West Coast time.
That's right.
Yeah. I'll be watching. I'll be cheering you on, buddy. Check your messenger. I'll be sending you little messages. Oh, you could do that.
Leon, be in chat. I want to see Bigfoot Okanagan in chat, man.
Well, the only drawback is they have a terrible tendency of going so fast through the chat. You're not going to be able to see our comments. They never seem to read the comments because they go through so fast. So
yeah, but I'll see it. I'll see that little Bigfoot Okanagan will catch my eye, and I know you're there.
Okay, all right. I'll do that.
So just at least do that, and you can ask questions. There will be a Q&A, you know. So, ask questions for her, not me. Like you've asked enough questions of me tonight, Jesus.
Well, you wanted the hot seat. I just gave you practicum. That's all.
I know, and I do. I welcome the hot seat. You know that. So,
but it's tough. It's good practicum though, but it's tough. So.
Yeah, it can be tough. But yeah, I never like I don't mind being challenged, you know.
Who does your hair? And I don't like that shirt you're wearing either. And what's that behind you on the counter? Is that a plant that's dying because it hasn't been watered for the last 7 weeks? What's going on with you, man?
No, it's perfectly watered. I promise. I don't know.
Actually, you'll probably find tomorrow.
We're going on 3 hours here.
Yeah, actually, tomorrow you'll probably find it rather easy compared to what you put you through the night.
Oh yeah. Here's the funny thing. You guys want to hear the funny thing? Is that so at noon I'm doing this Bigfoot debate, and at 8:00 p.m. my time Eastern, I'm doing on a different channel. I'm doing a flat Earth debate.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I'm doing 2 debates tomorrow, Bigfoot and flat Earth. Of course, I'm pro-globe. For those of you wondering, I'm not debating for flat Earth. We don't fucking live on a flat Earth, you know. I'd be able to see the Rocky Mountains from a hilltop here in Georgia if we lived on a flat plane. Can't do that. So I'm doing two debates tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're doing what you wanted to do, Pat. That's good for you, man. You wanted to shift and do this kind of style. Good for you.
Okay,
Yeah,
Strangeland. If I came across that, here's what I would do. A hand would go into my brother's freezer, and the rest of it I would take to Meldrum because he's only about a 9-hour drive from me.
And there'd be a whole bunch of seagulls following you.
Right.
You're back to your trailer. You all
Well,
of
just don't send Meldrum poop in the mail.
Yeah.
He doesn't like
No,
that.
that'd be the whole body sans the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Well,
that be
I tell you
fun?
what, man, when I get my thermal footage, the first thing I'm going to do is pull Meldrum in and screen share it with him in private and say, what's next? You know, what do we do with this? So
Do it again and again.
and again. Yeah, I want hours of footage. Yes, hours. I agree. So, yeah, thanks, guys. It's been an interesting discussion. Like, boy, we went in some areas I did not think we were going to go. But thanks for putting me on the hot seat. I guess there was some good debate prep going on here. Hopefully Erica's not watching.
Well, it's okay. She is. We're all on this. We're all trying to figure this out. So we want. We're not hiding nothing here from her.
Right.
Yeah.
And she, like I said, I mean, I'm glad you're talking to her and not the other one because she seems a little more. She seems a little more, again, seasoned, mature than the other one was. The other one was like, I got my degree out of university and I'm really involved. But
By the way, do you know the name of the people you'll be with tomorrow? Raptors asked that a number of times.
Yeah, it's her name's Erica. Like,
Okay.
that's all I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other, like, Leon, you were talking about Maddie, who was the opponent. Like, she's actually she's a very qualified scientist. She's an atmospheric scientist. So she studies, climate and climate change. And she's like very capable scientist. I mean, she has control of satellites and shit, Yeah. So she's doing cool stuff. It's just like she shouldn't have been paired with Meldrum,
Exactly.
And
But I mean, the other style, and if it was her, I would have totally went after her in regards to, do you know how to read? How often do you spend in the forest? Do you know how to read the ground? Do you know how to read a track? See,
Right.
because I might be scientifically minded, but it might not be the field that I'm actually academically trained for. And I mean, this happened back in the 60s when they were doing all the scientific studies on paranormal and cold reading, not cold reading, but astral projection and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And the scientists got sucked in hook, line, and sinker. And it took that, Randy the Amazing and illusionists to say, you guys are getting conned here. This is not what's happening at all. But the scientists, because of how they think, that's their blind spot. If you come in, if you know how they think and you present it in a narrative that fits how they think, you've already hidden the mystery from them.
Okay, we've been asked 2 questions now in the comment section. What would Meldrum do? I assume they mean what would Meldrum do with the body? Meldrum would examine it, and then he'd get several of his non-believing colleagues to look at it too.
Yes, he
And
would.
then there would probably be a press
academic
release. Then
contact.
there'd probably be a press release,
He-
and the slow merry-go-round of confirmation would start and would take a long time.
Yep.
That is what would happen if fired physical evidence is given to Jeff Meldrum. I hope that answers your question.
And just in case that answer is wrong, and just in case it would disappear, that's why the hand is in my brother's freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Agreed.
No, I can't picture Meldrum just getting rid of it. And
Neither can I.
probably-
That's why.
yeah.
That's why I bring Meldrum the body and I keep the hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
I'd bring
concur.
Meldrum the hand and keep the body.
Mhm.
Yeah, I concur 100% with both of you guys. Yeah. That's not what's going to happen. Tell you, if Meldrum had a handler or a head or something, and he said to his colleagues, "Hey, what a day of redemption for him, eh? Hey, you guys,
Yeah.
come here. I'm not going to say anything to you before I open the door here, but I want you to come in, and I'm going to show you something on the table. You tell me what the hell you think this is. Not just being able to say it to them. They would just be like,
Yeah, and the process of confirmation and getting the Sasquatch out of the realm of cryptozoology to everyday zoology would be a slow running process and would take quite a bit of time, but it will eventually happen. That's just getting the ball rolling. It's not going to be tomorrow the Sasquatch is real. It's not going to happen that way.
Not if you put it in front of the media.
Well, even then, there's going to be questions. It's like I said, it's a slow process. Other people who are not involved in this will have to look at it and say, geez, there's something to this.
Yep.
That's what will happen. Yep.
If you put a dead Sasquatch in front of the media and had other colleagues there to, verify what's going on, those two factors would be, a discovery. Nothing less.
It would be discovery that would be debated and challenged quite a bit.
By what? You have physical.
That's what I mean by the slow process.
Yeah, I don't think it would be slow. I think it would be pretty immediate. The world would go, holy shit, these things are real.
Yeah,
a lot of people would, but a lot of people would say, "Oh, what a load of crap."
Right, but the problem is the feeding frenzy would demand the scientists get on the topic fairly quickly and start dispensing what they're finding. Because the way with YouTube, and again, it'll be a feeding frenzy. If we found a body, there'll be a feeding frenzy. That's why I think, a lot more people will be out looking for them now because we actually have something solid instead of this all hyperbole or suggestion or stuff. Besides, people have seen one. I don't know. Who knows? We could all be wrong here, anyways. But I think more likely that's a pattern that usually would how something like this would unfold. So, but
all right, we'll see. We'll find out.
All right, we're good.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. I'm going to wrap it up, and interesting discussion tonight, as always. As always, I can always count on you guys.
Yeah. Have fun tomorrow, Pat. I'll be looking forward to watching it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm getting a little nervous about it, but yeah, it's gonna be fine.
Sorry, Ernie couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Too bad.
We'll bring Ernie on, man. I'm gonna get him on some Wi-Fi somewhere and get his butt on. He was smoking the pipe tonight. He told me.
Yeah, he's a pipe smoker, so I want to hear it.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, tell Thomas, man, I was smoking."
That raises his credibility immensely for Thomas.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll get Ernie back, man, and have a good discussion with him because he's a Bigfoot encyclopedia as far as I'm concerned.
Ooh, so there's two of them out there. He must be what are the two major encyclopedia?
Britannica, yeah.
That's Thomas in my mind. He's like the Bigfoot encyclopedia.
But yeah, Ernie's like that. That's the thing. It's like if Ernie was talking to Thomas, they both know what the hell they were talking about. Like Ernie knows all that stuff too, even though he wasn't there. Like Thomas was there for some of it. Ernie wasn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks for having us, Pat.
Yeah, great time, Pat.
Well, thanks, guys. And yeah, like check it out tomorrow, and let me know what you think, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
Roger that, boys. Have a good night.
Do that.
All right. See ya.